All right, it's 6:11. I'll give folks just a little bit more time to come in. In the meantime, I'm gonna do some introducing of myself. All right, everybody, hi, I am Dayna Lynn Nuckolls. Some people know me as the People's Oracle. Some people don't know me at all. I know that there are a lot of people here who are new to me, new to my work, new to sidereal astrology. And I'm actually really excited to share with you today. People still coming in. When I start this, I want to spend as short a time as possible. Those who know me know I love to talk. I'm so excited about this work and what we're doing that I could definitely talk about it for a very long time, but I don't want to waste your time. So yeah, hey Emilia and everybody in the comments, I see y'all. As people are filing in, I'm gonna take this moment to do my little introduction, right? Sorry to the people who aren't here yet who are gonna miss it, but we gotta get started. We don't have that long. So before we dig into the meat of why we are here, I wanna talk about why we're here and why we're here specifically in this way. Like, what the heck does astrology have to do with anything? Why is this valuable and meaningful to the urgency of this moment that we are in as a human species? So I want to pull something up for you. And what I'm going to pull up for you, give me just a moment, is an explanation of the principles and the framework that informs why I am so passionate about the potential and the evidence of what I've seen sidereal astrology being capable of in terms of helping us get free from this. And when I say this, I'm sure that conjures up some overlap for all of us. And in some ways, we each have our own something that we put in the blank of this. What is going on here? Here we go. Okay, let me find this. There it is. I'm going to share my screen here with you. Some of you may be familiar with this and some of you may not be familiar with this. This is my why. This is my raison d'etre, right? For using astrology the way that I do. And the principle and framework is called Divination for Liberation. And the simple short of it is that oracles are tools of divination meant to be used for the act of communal imagining. And so I'm just going to give you a chance to look at this and I'll read what it says and then we'll move on. Divination implies divine, which I define as the organizing principles of existence, which can be identified via the experience of existing and the observation of existence, which is what I call relationship, right? So if you pay attention to your own life, if you look at the past and present of you and your experiences, you look close enough, you can observe that there's an organizing principle at play. right? There's something that ebbs and flows, something that cycles and repeats, even if it's something just as simple as experiencing birth and death, physically, spiritually, psychologically, your physical appearance, birthing, dying again and again, right? There's some kind of organizing principles that can be observed, right? So divining is merely existing, right? You don't need anything special. And it's the observance of your own existence. It's a state of being in relationship with each other. It's how we recognize and identify the organizing principles of existence that are relevant in a specific space or place at a specific time. So what is liberation? I'm the kind of person, similar to how philosophers do. Philosophers are always going to define terms for you to make sure that we have a consensus about what we're talking about. So the word that's most important to define here today is liberation, which I define as the act of communal imagining. That means we come together and we conjure up ideas and thoughts and images together, right? Liberation, as I understand it, and as is absolutely relevant to what we're doing today, is political. And so when we come together today, we're going to ask ourselves and each other and conjure up answers to these questions. What is the right use of power? Right? How do we imagine new and just uses of powers? I will hope we would agree that the way that power is used right now is unjust. The power structures and dynamics that we exist in began in someone's imagination. They are not inherent to reality. Someone imagined them up. Someone conjured them up. Some people got together and agreed that the image that was conjured up, they were going to manifest it. Can't we do the same? Economic liberation is about what has value and how do we use it. One of the things I'm going to talk about today, or it might be implied in what I talk about today, is that one of the most sneaky tricks of modern day society is that it has seduced us into valuing currency over relationship. Consciously and unconsciously, we put currency over everything. Those of us who are parents, currency over relationship with our children. Currency as a barrier to us being in relationship with our children, right? Currency as a barrier to healthcare, helping one another, fairness and justice. Finally, spiritual liberation is why do we exist? What does existence mean and how can we exist together? For me, these are the pressing questions of this moment. The solutions to this moment and all that we face are in how we answer these questions, okay? This graphic is available on my Twitter, it's on my Instagram. I might be able to share it here with you if you want to have it. Let me stop my screen share and let me see if I can share it with you. So I'm going to share this in the chat for those who would like to have it and look at it. This graphic and its content originated in a lecture I presented in December 2021 on divination for liberation and what it means for sidereal astrology. All right, next up, there's still people filing in. All right. So to connect the dots a little bit, the reason why astrology, the reason why sidereal astrology is that it's an oracle. It's a tool of divination. It is a way for us to identify the organizing principles of existence. It's a way to name and give language to the organizing principles that you can see working in your own life. And so it is my deepest conviction that any oracle, any tool of divination, anything that allows us to name the organizing principles of existence is meant to be used for our liberation. That means sidereal astrology. Astrology is meant to be used for us to imagine new and just uses of power, to imagine new ways of value. What is it that we value? What do we do with it? These are not immutable realities. These are questions someone answered in their own imagination, and we're living in it right now, okay? So next piece is the name of this event, Decolonizing Our Survival Instincts. I'm gonna say this to you straight, and I'm gonna say this to you plain. To decolonize means to find inside your body, find inside your relationships with other humans, and to find inside your lived experience where you are preserving something other than your own life. Where are you preserving capitalism over your own health, over your own body, over your own family, over your own relationships, over your air you breathe, over the water you need to drink? Where are you preserving that system over your own survival? Where are you honoring and preserving? Where are you tacitly, implicitly, and explicitly honoring, uplifting, and preserving the idea that men are entitled to power and positions of power over anyone else? How are you, in your interpersonal, most intimate relationships with your loved ones and with your own body and self, are you preserving the power of men over your own life? And finally, this is the one that's going to make you uncomfortable. Where in your life, in your most intimate relationships, in your interactions with other humans, are you uplifting, worshiping, praising, idolizing the power and identity of whiteness over yourself? What I'm really saying is that your nervous system, your human function of self-preservation is occupied by capitalism. How do I know? Because you go to work sick. You send your children to school sick. When you go to the restaurant, you feel entitled to the labor, attention, and time of your server at the expense of their own humanity. You call the manager when they don't serve you well enough. You don't leave a tip. You erase their humanity. They are not human, they are server, a tool for you, right? So to decolonize our survival instincts means that, one, we get inside our bodies. You have to feel. And you know what? In order to survive in capitalism, you have to numb and dissociate. To numb means you create the conditions to prioritize one feeling over another, right? You don't want to feel pain. Work, 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 work. Feeling pain is a threat to your housing. It's a threat to your food. It's a threat to your livelihood. If you feel pain, it's going to put your ability to sell your labor in jeopardy. If you grieve too long, you'll lose your job. If you get angry when your boss and manager disrespects you, treats you like an animal, you don't get to have pride and dignity. Suck it up. So we have to decolonize our survival instincts. We admit the fact that we don't feel our bodies as a means to preserving our own lives. We numb and dissociate from our bodies in order to preserve capitalism, in order to preserve the power of whiteness, in order to preserve male entitlement to power. Can't you see it? Parents are buying bulletproof backpacks for their children. Why are they doing that? Why? It is because they would rather send their children into a war zone than to give up perceived access to privilege that comes from education. Other parents cannot afford to withdraw their children from the war zone because they have to sell their labor. So here we are, back to square one, preserving capitalism over the life of your own children because you've been seduced and coerced violently. So let's get to it. The reason why we're focusing on Mars is because of what it represents. So let's go through this really quickly. Mars is a planet. In sidereal astrology, divination for liberation, planets first and foremost are people. So when you are looking at your birth chart or you hear me or other astrologers in this community talk about a planet, it's not some woo-woo fabrication of something. It's a person, and it's your experience in that relationship. And it's a part of you that is shaped by that experience. Time for me to share something with you on my screen again. Hold tight. In the meantime, guys, if at any point you have a question or comment, please raise your hands and we can take pauses and dialogue with each other, right? I'll see your hand. While I am pulling up my screen, I think it's a good time to pause, and Ashley, you can share your comment or question.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to know, when you said that Mars is a person, do you mean like a person in your life or a person? Can you elaborate on that?
I absolutely can. And when I pull up my slide, I will show you. Give me just a second. Okay, this is from my workshop, the Wounds and Gifts workshop. So when I say planet, Ashley, I mean a literal person. It's not always the same person, but you can identify what person it is by the kind of experiences you have and the nature of that relationship, right? So Mars isn't always a boy or a man, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be gendered, though it often can be, right? But you know what person a planet symbolizes based on the experience that you have in that relationship. based on the part of you that comes out in that relationship, right? If we want to use a little bit of psychological developmental theory, right? We can talk about how, specifically in your birth chart, any planet, in this case Mars, representing a person, a relationship dynamic, right? In that first 7 years is shaping your self. It's shaping this part of yourself, right? So let's get out of theory and apply. Now, real quick disclaimer. When you see these words, wounds, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this. When you see this word like wound, I don't mean bang, 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 ouch. I mean, it is not always bad. This is going to be a repeat broken record for some folks, but I just want to check my email real quick. Okay, no messages. Y'all were supposed to see that. Okay, here we are, we're back. Bang, bang, I don't mean that. Wounds are this: willful or passive, malignant or benign. Passive wound, specifically when we're talking about abandonment, mommy's got to go shower, little newborn infant. And baby, baby don't know, baby don't have object permanence yet, okay? Baby don't know mom is coming back, right? But mom taking a shower is very, very important in terms of shaping this particular part of their baby, autonomy. Mommy has to go shower because the only way baby is going to know that it's not going to die if it's left alone is if incrementally baby experiences passive, benign abandonment. So that baby knows that baby is separate from mommy and that they are not one. Now, we all know what happens when baby don't learn that they are separate from mommy. And this can happen in a variety of ways. We won't go there, okay? Willful abandonment. Willful. It may not be intended to have a specific consequence, but it happens. Mommy drops baby off at the fire station. The intention is to leave the baby. Baby is abandoned, permanent separation, right? We all know that intimacy, whether we're talking about a familial bond or a friendship or romantic relationship, that we're talking about the dance of coming together and separating, coming together and separating, allowing ourselves to be changed inside a relationship, separating to reclaim the boundaries of self. So when we talk about your Mars placement, we are examining the way that you become separate, the way that you realize that you are an individual. We know that we struggle with this. We struggle, right? When we talk about attachment issues, right? What we're talking about is a core wound of really not knowing where I end and where you begin, where my feelings end and where you begin, where my body ends and where yours begins. Now, again, I just want you to remember this, that when you see this word of wound, it is not always a willful, malignant wound. There's degrees here. There is the basic fundamental development of you as an individual, right? I see someone in the chat saying, is this related to the mother wound? It can be, but it's really important that when we see the word wound, we are not saying somebody hurt me. Think of it this way. If you go and get a malignant tumor removed, there's a wound. This is not a bad thing, right? This is not, it's a great thing. Thank God for sanitized scalpels and the skillful hands of surgeons who know how to sever flesh and sew it back up. There's a wound there. A gunshot is a different kind of wound. Ouch. Somebody did that on purpose. They were trying to hurt you on purpose, right? So expand your mind here. The English language is struggle mode, okay? And so, sorry, let me close this. I just am checking to see if people are sending me messages because they can't get in, but I think everybody's okay, right? I want to dig that home because part of what I talk about in this workshop is that this process of wound, gift, or wound coping strategy and gift does not, it's not like a first, second, and third. One of the things I talk about is that gifts can come via privilege. People perceived to be male have way more autonomy than people perceived to be female. We know this is not even debatable, okay? There are no laws on the books governing the sperm of men. It's not happening. And if there are, they're not enforced. None of them, whether we're talking about paternity, whether we're talking about abortion, right? It's not happening, okay? So in the realm of decolonizing the survival instinct, the reason why we're focusing on Mars is because Mars is about autonomy. Anybody who knows some etymology knows that auto means self, autodidactic, someone who teaches themselves, autobiographical, someone who writes their own life story, autonomy, self-law or self-governance. So I mean this in a very specific way. Where are we marking where the power and authority of capitalism ends and my power over myself begins? This requires you to admit that you don't have free will. Okay? This is gonna be really uncomfortable for some folks. You don't have free will. I promise you, you are not choosing to sell your labor to survive. I promise you, free will is not choosing which way you're going to sell your labor. Okay? It's not just, oh, get a better job. That's not free will. What we're really dealing with here is, do you want this? Do you want self-governance? Do you want power over yourself? Or, y'all know what I'm gonna say, do you want power over someone else? Now, I wanna be clear here. To have power over yourself means that you cannot have power over others. To have autonomy, self, governance, power over self, authority over yourself. It means you cannot tell other people who they are. You can't assign identity to someone. You can't look at someone's genitals and say, this is who you are, what you can do with it. You cannot assume that anybody else's physical appearance gets to determine what they can or cannot do. You cannot do that. Now, do I mean that people should be able to murder and run free? No. But people do murder and run free. So now what? Okay, so when we examine your Mars placement, what we're really asking is, how do you, or what is in the way of you getting here? This requires you to acknowledge that we're not autonomous. We know it on some level, right? One of the phrases that is floating out in the world, bodily autonomy. That is the right to govern my own body. To have power over what happens with my own body. So today we're here to talk about what's in the way of us getting here. What's in the way? Now, in order to participate in this next part, I'm gonna stop this share real quick. In order to participate, is this dirty? I feel like this is a little dirty. Much better. In order to participate in this next part, you need to have your sidereal birth chart. Now, I did send out a message. Don't know if y'all got it, but we're here. Thank you, Elias. I'm gonna show you. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna show you. We're gonna look at my birth chart and I'm gonna show you how to do, okay? How to find out where Mars is. So what you gotta do first is resume share. I keep pressing the wrong button. Still wrong button. Where is it? Oh, here we go. This is Mars. And let me actually draw a permanent circle here. This is Mars. You see that? Sometimes you see that on the bathroom for people with penises, allegedly. Right? Men, males, okay? That's Mars. Now, if you followed the instruction, Mars should be in a section just like this, where there's one sign and one house. If you got multiple signs in one house, you did not follow instructions. Hey, Bethany, guess what? You don't have to understand this chart. That's the great thing about what I do. This doesn't require you to have any knowledge. The less knowledge you have, the better, because then I don't have to compete with what's already in your head, right? So all I want you to do, Bethany, is to focus on, I didn't mean to do that, is to focus on just this one little symbol. Do I have it here? I don't have it over here. Okay, just to focus on this one little symbol right here, okay? So let's pause. If you cannot find that symbol, you can come down here to this table at the bottom and find Mars. Now, unfortunately, they're not telling you what these symbols mean. Okay, but I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna help you out. So, does anyone need help finding where Mars is in their birth chart? Please raise your hand. I'm gonna stop this share. Does anyone need help? Can everyone identify that little ditty? Veronica, do you need help? Veronique, I'm sorry, Veronique.
I'm sorry, I have an external mic and I forgot that I had it muted.
Okay.
Apologies. But yes, I do need a little help.
Okay, can you, are you able to either DM me your chart on Instagram or Twitter, or if you want to share it here, I don't know how to do that, but
Yeah, I can DM you on Twitter, I believe.
not Twitter, because I'm not gonna get it.
Oh, fair.
I don't know
Okay.
why I said that. I'm in Instagram. DM me on Instagram and I'll look at it. Anyone
Okay.
who's having trouble, I'm on my Instagram right now.
Okay. I just followed you. I'm a little scattered. I will send you that in a moment.
Nyasha, if you need help, you can DM me your chart on Instagram. If it's another question related to this, then after I do this with Veronique, I can answer it for you. So just let me know when you sent it and I'll look. If you don't know your birth time, go to timeanddate.com, or matter of fact, just go to your favorite search engine and type in moonrise or when is moonrise, and it'll likely take you to timeanddate.com. And what you're going to do is put in your birthday and your birth location, and no need for a time, click it in. And then you're going to use the time of moonrise for your birth time. Okay.
I just sent it to you.
I see you. Oh, you didn't follow directions. This is why y'all gotta follow the directions. That's why you can't tell. You gotta use the instructions I sent, Veronique, because there are a lot of different ways to calculate charts. And if you're not using the way that I calculate, the information is gonna be inaccurate. So
did you send it via email?
We've been dropping it in the chat, but I'm gonna send it to you right now in this chat you just sent me, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're
Apologies.
welcome. I did send it in an email, but I just don't know that everybody got it. So I feel like I might have individually emailed you with a group of other people, so I don't know, but that's okay. Okay, I sent it. Yeah, because I don't know what this calculation, I don't know which zodiac or anything, so I can't. 89, yeah, I don't know. Okay, use that and then let me know if you still have a question, okay?
Will do, thank you.
You're welcome. Ayana.
Hi.
Hi.
I had the same problem. I just DM'd you my chart.
Okay, I see a few folks. Okay. Ayana, you have Mars in Virgo. Yeah, you didn't follow the instructions either, but that's okay. I'm gonna help y'all out. We gonna do a how to cast your charts Zoom one day, okay? But it's in Virgo, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Lana. You said 2 here. Okay. Lana, you got a lot going on here. You have Mars in Pisces. Doreen, you have Mars in Cancer. So write that down. I'm here in my DMs, so okay, I see Jada. You have Mars in Virgo. All these Virgo Mars. Yeah, your Mars is in Pisces, Lana. I don't know what that other astrologer told you. One thing you're gonna learn about me, my friends, is that I am a very simple person. I'm a minimalist. That's what I'm trying to say. Instagram DMs, People's Oracle. Send me your chart to my DMs on Instagram, okay? Not Twitter, because I'm not gonna get it. Okay. Once you know, all you need is your Mars sign. If you know the house, that's cool too. But I'm not gonna talk about that today. Elise, or, oh. Hold on, I see you. You have Mars in Aries. Ooh, and Scorpio rising too. You are breaking up. Can't hear you.
Oops, hold on. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean, you a little, it's sounding like one of them old school cell phone commercials. Can you hear me now? It's a little bit broken up, but I think I can hear you okay. You have Mars in Aries though. You did the chart correctly. Okay. Beautifully complex, you have Mars in Leo. Woo, right on the midheaven, my friend. Mars in Leo, beautifully complex. This is, who is this? Tamira, I think that's how you say that. You gotta follow the instructions that I'm about to send you in your DMs. So follow these instructions because I can't tell what's going on there. Who else here? T. Reeves. This is, ooh, Margin Sagittarius. Who is this? Brittany, Mars in Gemini. Brittany Lovett, Mars in Gemini. Asaya, I think that's how you say that. You have Mars in Capricorn. Ooh, this is about to be so fun. Maria, it's totally fine that it doesn't know the neighboring city. It doesn't need to be that precise, okay? So no worries. No worries if it doesn't have your city, just do the closest one. Who is this? Ashley Davidson, Mars in Virgo. Leonie, you have Mars in Sagittarius. I think I got everyone. Okay, everybody knows their Mars now? We good? All you need is the name of your Mars, and then we can do it, okay? So I'm gonna go back to my little wounds and gifts workshop here. Now, we're gonna go What is going on here? Ah, let me pull up the right situation here. Okay. Now, let me just look y'all in the face and tell y'all this real quick. For those of you who know a little something about astrology, not necessarily about my system and what I do, I want you to know that the approach we are about to embark on is likely very unfamiliar to you, okay? And so I want you to keep an open mind, and I want you to listen and raise your hand if you have questions, okay? They in the chat talking about leave tropical at the door. I mean, it's true. If y'all want to hear me gripe about tropical, you can download my lecture, lecture number 1 in my shop, and I'll tell you all I think is wrong. Okay. Who is that, Ezra? Okay. Where are we at here? What do I want to show you? Okay, let me just show you this real quick. And then we'll go to the next slide. Okay, real quickly, a wound, no judgment, no value assignment. Okay, this is something you gotta make friends with here in this world. No value assignment. The only value you assign it is unique to the moment that you're in it, right? And to your experience. But we're not assigning value to anything. English is a really tough language because words have kind of these culturally specific value assignments that I'm constantly beefing with, but I'm doing the best I can. Until I learn German, this is what I got, okay? Wounds, real simple. Experiences in relationships. What happened? What happened to you, right? Now you know best what the nature of that experience is, or I might help you find the language to articulate what that experience was today, okay? Next, we have a coping strategy, how the experiences are survived, managed, or coped with, okay? Every sign, every sidereal astrology sign has a wound, gift, and coping strategy. So that's why I gotta explain this to you, okay? Then we have a gift, which is the part of self that is developed and shaped by these experiences. Okay, I'm gonna just leave it at that. If you want more on this, you know where to find it. Now, let's get to the nitty gritty. Every Mars placement is in a sidereal zodiac sign. And that sidereal zodiac sign is made up of 2 parts, multiple parts, but we're just going to talk about 2, okay? Let me answer this real quick. This recording will be free, okay? It'll be on YouTube. Now, every sign has 2 parts. It has a tool, which you might know as an element, okay? A tool is a behavior, a trait, a habit, a skill, a talent, a belief about the way the world works, a tool, right? But the most important thing about tools that you need for today, if you don't see any of this and none of this makes sense, write this down, what I'm about to say. What tools, literally, have your experiences given you in order to survive and get your needs met? What you got in your toolkit? When conflict comes, when you go in your toolkit, how you beefing? You slicing and dicing folks with some words? You want to talk it out? You want to eat some ice cream? Have a few cigs? Right? Or not even notice that there's conflict, right? Everybody's got a different tool in their toolkit. And this is really important because living in this society is constant conflict, constant. You're beefing with your mother because of patriarchy, I promise you. I promise you, you are beefing with your mother because of patriarchy. You're beefing with your mother because of capitalism, period. Period, I promise you. The reason why your mother neglected you is because she had to sell her labor to survive, because men are not held accountable for their role, because we prioritize the heterosexual monogamous relationship over all other forms of relationship and community. If your father left, your mama best friend really couldn't just come in and y'all just decide that y'all was gonna do that thing together, not because you were gay or a lesbian, maybe you were, maybe not, but not because they were gay or lesbian, but because patriarchy says, y'all can't make enough money anyway. 84 cents to the dollar, 50 if you're Hispanic, right? These are real things. The beefs that we have are all in the same root, right? So first up, when we talk about what tools, right? Somebody resurfaced one of my old threads on Mars talking about knives. That was a fun thing to do and it was funny, right? But specifically, when we're talking about Mars, how you gonna get to this autonomy? What's in the way of this autonomy? What is in the way of you governing yourself? What is in the way of you reclaiming power over yourself instead of being seduced by capitalism's manipulation that you should have power over other people? Make more money. You made more money. Why should they get their student loan debt canceled? You paid yours off. Because that's your power. That's all the power you got in capitalism. You can't have power over your uterus. Can't have power over your body. Can't grieve when your loved one dies. So all you got is lording the little bit of power capitalism gave you over everyone else. You pay your taxes. Why should anyone else get it? You see that? You like it. It feels good. It makes you have agency, but guess what? You got to sell your labor. And if you're okay with that, cool, do it. But I promise you, none of the problems are going to be solved unless we imagine together. We decide and conjure up an image of what it is that we value. Do you value selling your labor? I don't know. So what's in the way? What has happened to you in your life? Let's go back. We're going to do the water signs first. So water sign is if your Mars is in Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio. Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio. Water is your body and bodily functions. Literally, hunger, sleep, the physiological manifestation process of emoting. Water is your bodily functions. Now, the wound, meaning the experiences water sign Mars has had as a means to developing, reaching autonomy, feeling yourself as separate from others, self-governance, is being disarmed. Did you know that your body and bodily functions are meant to not only protect you from danger, but to like keep you alive. Grief is meant to keep you alive. Did you know that? You need to grieve. Grief is evidence that there have been relational connections that you value. Why? Because survival is meant to be a shared burden. Shared. So what happens when you're disarmed? What happens when your body and bodily functions are colonized by capitalism? What happens when your body and bodily functions are weaponized against you by patriarchy? You can't even bleed freely. You can't eat when you're hungry because it's not break time yet. You can't use the bathroom when you have to because the teacher didn't give you permission. Being disarmed means that the communication process with you as a conscious being with your body, right, has been severed. One of my favorite examples is to talk about Mars and Cancer, right? Mars in Cancer is, your wound is being indulged, coddled. Why? Why is that a wound? Why does being indulged and coddled disarm you, Mars in Cancer? Because it's not actually meeting your real need for connection. It's a pacifier. So instead of attention, more food, a bottle. Instead of looking you in your eyes and talking to you and spending time with you, they buy you things. Here, have this. And so now, when you feel like you need attention and you're not getting it, what do? You eat your feelings. Now, this is gonna resonate for you if you got any Cancer in your chart, right? But the point being is that being disarmed of the capacity to protect yourself means that you are avoiding feeling a specific feeling, and you want to numb feeling that feeling with another feeling, consuming, consumption, right? Now, the gift and the goal for my water sign Mars people is to be affected by your own body. This is really, really hard because capitalism requires you to be numbed. Maybe you'd figure out why your uterus feels like someone's stabbing you every month if you could actually just be with the pain and not have to go to work and sit there and figure out, be attuned to your body and pay attention to what happened before, during, and after. Something happened to you. That is not the natural state of your body. All pain, every single one of it, is our body's cry for safe connection. So my sidereal water sign Mars people, this right here, this has saved your life. You've survived because of this. You've survived. What do you think addiction is? It's numbing. When you can't escape the feeling, all you're left to do is to numb it. And we all got it. We all have some type of addiction, right? We all have our ways of coping. The point of being disarmed is that they heard you cry. They just were not interested in what you were crying about. Why? Capitalism doesn't allow you the time to be attuned enough to actually figure out what's going on. And so this is the same relationship that you have with your own body now. Capitalism doesn't allow you to actually be attuned, present to, and aware of your body and bodily functions. Your caregivers were not present to and aware of what was happening in your body and bodily functions. So they gave you a pacifier, and you can insert into that pacifier whatever it may be. They weren't able to be present with their own anxiety. And we know why. Your mother was in a relationship with a man who was beating her ass. So what did she do to herself? Okay. So for my sidereal Mars water sign people, Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer. What is in the way of you being affected by your own body? Can you grieve when it's time to grieve? Can you rest when it's time to rest? And if you don't have the privilege to do that, can you become present to the reality of what is preventing you from doing that? Can you be present to the fact that there is not something wrong with you, it's something wrong with your environment, your community, your environment is not conducive to, it is not supportive of, it does not have the conditions that allow you to be affected, present to, aware of your own body. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me stop this share real quick. No questions? If you got questions, just raise your hand. I'm gonna move on so that we don't be here all day, because y'all know I be getting down. I be so passionate. I be so into it. Let's move on to fire signs. Mars in Aries, Mars in Sagittarius, Mars in Leo. Ooh, this gonna hurt a few folks' feelings, but we doing it today. Fire is your will. It's what animates the body. It is the thing that becomes conscious of what's happening in the body. Okay. Will and conscious awareness. This is for Mars in sidereal Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries. Wound invalidation. What does that mean? No, you can't. Who do you think you are? What makes you think you have the right to insert, take up space? What do you mean we should change because of the fact that you exist? What do you mean you're not who I told you you are? You are. You're a boy. Don't you look in between your legs and see that's who you are? Who do you think you are, huh? To see yourself differently than I see you. I tell you who you are. Who do you think you are to go into engineering? This is for men. You're a woman. Get out of here. There's no way you could be capable of being good at this because you have a vagina. Who do you think you are? Invalidation. Coping strategy. Exaggeration of abilities and influence. Now, before I go on, let me say this about the invalidation too. Invalidation is also people not recognizing that there are limits because you're 5. You're not supposed to be taking care of your 3 siblings under 2 and you're 12. Not acknowledging the fact that because you're 12, you actually have limits. Maybe because of the conditions, there was no help. Your parents were immigrants, grandma, all aunts and uncles back home, right? And one thing I always say to my Mars fire sign people, just because you had to doesn't actually mean that you were capable. Doesn't actually mean that you should have. So the exaggeration of abilities and influence is actually not knowing your own limits, right? When this goes too far, you get somebody like Elon Musk or Kanye West, right? It's narcissism, not clinically, because I'm not diagnosing anybody, but it's narcissistic traits, right? Why does Elon Musk think that he can buy Twitter and run Twitter, right? Like what is this? But this is what patriarchy does. Patriarchy invalidates the reality that men have limits and are unqualified for certain things. Right? The coping strategy of fire can be excessive risk-taking. Right? Exaggeration of abilities and influences. Yes, I can pack up my car and move across the country even though I ain't got no job or no place to live. Yes, I can start this business even though I have no idea what I'm selling. I'm going to quit my job. Sometimes it works out for you though, right? Right? Sometimes it works out for you. And it makes you feel like, yes. Oh, yes. Right? Exaggeration of abilities and influence. Mars and Leo, I'm looking at you. Yes, I know. I know. I know. I know. Do you though? Right? Fire sign, this wound gift coping strategy, right? Exaggeration of influence and ability is actually internal self-talk to try to make you feel more confident than you actually do. Or, right, to I'm losing my words here, give me a second. To make you feel confident when you don't feel confident, to make you feel sure of yourself when you actually aren't sure of yourself. It's actually a performance. But the gift is entitlement, right? It's the entitlement of actually knowing what you're capable of. Entitlement is knowing what you're capable of. And, right, recognizing that you have limits. Oh, you know what? That's not even my ministry. I'm good. So understand that what's happening here with invalidation is that your limits are not acknowledged. Your limits are not acknowledged in this way that you find yourself unable to actually perceive where real limits are in the world. But understand, this is important. Why? Because when we talk about liberation, you need this. Because if we're too stuck in reality, if we're too trapped in the way that things are, right? We have to be able to see that we can do things we've never done. We can't just rely on the evidence of the fact that we've never done it, so we can't do it. I've never seen it happen. It never happened for me, so it can't happen, right? So there's just this fine little space here, right? So invalidation has two sides. Telling you you can't, explicitly saying to your face, oh, no women allowed here, but also ignoring the fact that you actually do have limits, right? So sometimes the exaggeration of abilities and influences is a way to spite people who told you you can't. And now you've created a whole life around trying to prove other people wrong. When it's like, do I even like to do this? Is this what I really want? Is this going to make me feel good? Am I going to enjoy this? Is this satisfying to me? Is this necessary for me to do? Right? Entitlement is having right relationship with your own power and influence, your own impact and influence. Okay? Again, if you have questions, raise your hand. I'm going to go through earth and air, and then I'll answer questions. Okay? All right. We've got earth. Earth and water are friends, right? Water is your bodily and body functions, relations, connections to other. And then earth is your sense experience of the material, physical, tangible. So you can't have a sense experience of the material and tangible if you don't have a body. Okay. Wound of earth, withholding. Oof. When we get to these tasks, you're going to see just what is being withheld, right? Taurus's validation is being withheld. Capricorn Mars, the fact that you have needs at all being denied, withheld. No, we ain't got it. No, I ain't got it to give. No, I don't want to give it to you. Okay? Withholding. And so we conform. My Mars Taurus people, I am not going to validate the fact that you're gay. I am withholding approval. I will not accept you. Conform. You are who I tell you you are, right? You are boy, you are straight, you like girls, you get married, carry these heavy things, conform to the role and expectation. Capricorn, we don't have it, so I can't give it to you. Oh, need not being met, must not be a need. I'm alive without it. Right? Sense. Being present to and aware of. Mars and Capricorn friend, just because you were denied and have learned to conform to the denial by doing more with less, not demanding anything, right? The gift of sense is really that part of earth is like being able to absorb the reality of the way things are, right? But what happens with earth is that it's very hard for us to recognize when conditions have changed. We are acclimated to, conforming to, I don't know what just happened. How did that happen? Conforming to the withholding of approval, Taurus, the withholding of your needs being met, Capricorn, and Mars, Virgo. It is the withholding of truth. They lied to you, Mars and Virgo. They lied. How does Virgo cope? Literalness, black and white. Things are exactly what they appear to be. Nothing more, nothing less. That's the protection. Do you understand that, Virgo, Mars? It is a way to protect yourself from the truth being withheld, to make things literal, black and white, either or. You said this, my kid got Mars and Virgo, Saturn and Virgo, Virgo rising. And one of the ways that he deals with that is by pretending to not know what I'm talking about because I didn't use the precise words. Sometimes it's in jest, right? For example, yesterday he went to go put a Band-Aid on before he ate his mango. I said, why would you go put a fresh Band-Aid on before you ate the mango so that the Band-Aid could get sticky? He says, well, the Band-Aid is already sticky. Wink, wink. All right. Right? Right. So understand here what we're talking about, right? What is in the way? What is in the way of self-governance? I know it's not too many men in here, but for my men in here, in what ways have you drank the Kool-Aid of patriarchy and you think that you are capable of so much more? You think that the relationships you occupy should change just because you're there. How about you change? How are you going to change? Right? What's your relationship with entitlement? Do you recognize the limits of your own impact and influence? Right? Or do you walk around with bravado, talking up yourself big? Right? Which one is it? My earth people, right? Whew. When are you going to stop conforming and become present to the reality, right? All my Mars Taurus people, y'all about to get beat up. And I'm just letting you know, you're about to get beat up because you believe that performing roles will save you. It has saved you, right? You've been a good daughter. You tried your best to be a good wife, a good spouse, a good white person, a good straight person, a good cisgendered person. You've tried to fulfill the role and expectations very well. You've been a good laborer, haven't you? You worked and sold your labor just like they told you to. Why are you still struggling to pay your rent? You've been a good laborer with your $100,000 in student loan debt. Ain't even touched the principal in 10 years, right? You filled the role well. You did it. And they still won't accept you. They still won't accept you. Let's move on to air. I'm glad that you can identify with all of them, Bethany. I'm glad. Don't even ask why. Roll with it, okay? Air, wound being ignored. You do not exist. You do not exist. One day I might start a Mars and Libra support group, because let me tell you, I always say for my Venus signs, which are Taurus, and Libra. For Taurus is, well, who do I look like I am, right? How am I performing for you? And Libra says, well, what does it look like I'm doing? Right, it's the concealment piece. Sometimes that gets in trouble though. For my Taurus people, you look like a straight cisgendered person. That could work in your favor, right? I'm going to go through air quickly, and then I was gonna do tasks, but what I really wanna do is just go through every sign, okay? So let's just get through this air really quickly. But this is important because you can also apply this to all of your other chart placements. Being ignored, literally, you do not exist in the imaginations of other people. See, with fire, everybody is all up in your business. But with air, you don't exist. You don't exist to other people with air. Okay? For Gemini, you don't know anything. I have to tell you everything because you're just so stupid. Go read another book, Gemini. Do some more research. Take another class to get another degree so you can prove how smart you are. Gemini, self-deprecation. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Yes, you do. It's just that they don't believe you. So you have to keep proving it. So you have to get another degree. You have to take another course and workshop. You got to read another book. Right? Oh, Mars in Aquarius, right? Self-deprecation. You've been invisible all this time. No one sees you, recognizes you. Ooh, James, Jupiter and Gemini, that's my favorite. Y'all love another course, another book, another degree. One day you'll gather up enough information that'll prove to yourself and others that you know what you're talking about, right? Right. So we've got self-deprecation for Geminis. Well, I don't know. It's like, it's not that you don't know, it's just that people keep treating you like you're stupid. The condescension, right? The patronizing, right? Oh, Libra. You don't look like you can though. One of the big thing for Mars and Libra, me and Winter were just talking about this, is about avoiding punishment, right? Self-deprecation. Compliance is a form of self-deprecation. What's in the way for Libra? You're too afraid to break the rules. You're just tell me what the rules are, I'll follow the rules, and then when in fact, the rules aren't for everybody. The rules are only for people with uteruses, okay? The rules are only for people who sell their labor, not for the people who own the means of production, not for the actual capitalist class, right? Libra is a habitual rule follower, even to their own detriment. We gonna get to these signs. The gift of air is imagination. How can you hold an image of something in your mind even when it's not being acknowledged by other people? How can you hold an image in your mind of who you are, Aquarius, even when who you are is not being acknowledged by other people? How can you hold tight to a vision of what you want to do, Libra, even when other people can't see your vision? How are you going to be strategic and navigate in order to bring this to pass? Right? Gemini. How are you using language in ways that make people uncomfortable? In a good way, right? Let's get to these signs. I'm gonna do this quick. I want y'all to look at this. We started with Cancer. So understand this, my friends. This is what happened to you, okay? This is how you coped with it. This is the gift that you have to give. And understand that when I talk about like what's in the way and what you have to offer, this isn't some big thing where you have to go out into the world and make an announcement. This starts in your body with yourself in your most intimate relationships. Let me pause this real quick. And I didn't check, nobody has their hands raised. Okay, let's go through these signs and then we'll talk. I want to get through these. Let me not take 30 minutes. I'm gonna try my best. Okay. Okay, all right. Cancer. This is your word, and this is the word for all of my cardinal sign people. These are still for Mars, but if they apply for other stuff, hold tight to it, okay? This is for Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, and Libra. Dysregulation. This is about control. My cardinal sign people, Cancer, Libra, Aries, Capricorn, you are the leaders. You are the people that other people watch. You are the one that has the will to take control. For my mutable sign people, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, your realm is in knowledge and meaning making. And for my fixed sign people, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, you are the ones who are literally changing the status quo of identity. Taurus, by not being seduced into docility or recognizing in situations where you're powerless and you have no choice but to put your tail in between your legs, put your head down and smile to disarm your abuser, right? My Taurus people are the one who can get inside of institutions and disrupt from the inside. But see, for my Mars and Taurus people, you have to recognize that just because you're in there does not mean that's who you are. Just because people see you as white does not mean you have to surrender to whiteness. That's a form of power, privilege, which I call a weapon. What are you going to use it for? Taurus is the hardest one, but it's the most, it's like the wildest one too, right? Because oftentimes with Taurus, you blend in so well that you start to drink the Kool-Aid. And you believe in the power of whiteness. You believe in capitalism. Look at all the great schools you went to. Look at the degrees you have. Even for Leo, you're so smart. Look at you with your academic position. Look at you with your PhD. Look at you in management and supervisor roles, right? Look at you. And you really start to believe that you earned it. You did not, Taurus. It just so happens that you pass for cisgendered white, middle class. Your class privilege got you into the institution. Nepotism got you the job. Your white skin had them assigning abilities to you that you don't actually have. What are you going to do with that? Let me stay on topic here. We on Cancer. Sorry, I've been prepared to talk to Taurus all day. Love y'all. Everybody in my family got Taurus, so I can't even be, why is this acting shady? Here we go. Why is it green? There we go. Okay, Cancer. What is between you and radicalness? It is radical to be attuned to yourself. Let me make that clear. This right here is radical. Do you understand that? Okay, do you understand? You don't have to go out buy nothing. You don't got to buy no t-shirt. You ain't even got to donate to Black Lives Matter. You need to get in tune with the fact that the identity An ideology of whiteness requires you to numb yourself. And so coming into attunement with yourself means being in your body as a means to regulating and control instead of buying things. This will be on Twitter, on YouTube, I'll share the link, okay? Okay, it's gonna be on YouTube. This is radical, Mars in Cancer. It is radical for you to make space, because you're not always gonna be able to do it. We gotta be in the world, but not of it, okay? You have to make space and time for you to be affected by your own body. No alcohol, no going to the club. Sobriety is how you get to attunement, Mars in Cancer. Kelly McWilliams, yes to your question. My larger answer is I am starting a cohort for parents to work through their children's charts, either August or September. I've been looking for a date to start, but things be looking real crazy, okay? In 2022, I'm trying. But first cohort, and for those who cannot afford to be in the cohort, we are going to do study salon groups. So those who can afford to be in the cohort, we're gonna have options for everybody. This is what imagining value looks like. I need to eat, and so y'all who have money can give it to me, but the people who need this don't have money, so I'm gonna give it to them. You see how that works? Great. Okay. This is radical, Mars Cancer. Let's go to the next one. Leo, do you know that having dignity and self-respect is radical? Did you know that? Did you know that it is radical to think well of yourself and to honor your limitations? That is what acceptance is, right? This is radical, Black man. This is radical, trans person. This is radical, white person. Did you know, to my white friends in here who are ready to get down with the liberation struggle, did you know that you were the first victims of whiteness? The rest of us, this happened later for the rest of us. Did you know that you were the first victims, the first to be oppressed by whiteness, the first who was coerced into giving up their native tongue, the first who was coerced into giving up their relationship with the land, the first who was coerced to give up the names of their gods, the first who was coerced into giving up their cultural and spiritual practices, the first to give up their cuisine, the first to give up their intergenerational living and family communal practices? You were the first. The rest of us, it happened later. You don't even know what languages your ancestors spoke. Trust me, it wasn't English, it wasn't Italian, it wasn't French, it wasn't Portuguese. It wasn't German either. Maybe been a precursor to German. Might have been Gaelic, right? Right? You were the first. Dignity and self-respect is radical. See, this is not deep. And do you understand that these are things that you can start on today? This is going to be hard for you, though, to recognize when you are operating out of hubris and arrogance. But how do you know, Mars and Leo, that you're operating out of hubris and arrogance? Is because you're self-conscious, meaning that you are policing the way that other people perceive you. You are more concerned with the image that you are projecting to other people and convincing them of who you are than accepting yourself. Where does this come from? Who? Mars and Leo. Y'all been under the microscope. Selfish-centered meanings being trapped in someone's gaze. Was it your daddy? Your husband? Your teachers? What authority figures' gaze were you trapped in? How are they shaming and rebuking you? Leading to exaggeration of abilities and influence, right? Let's go on. When you have questions, hold them tight, write them down. We're gonna come to them. We on to Capricorn. Oof. This is radical in capitalism. This is radical. Don't you see it? That this is radical in capitalism? Consume, consume, consume. Buy more, buy more, buy more. This is resourcefulness is different than repression, though. Repression is denying the fact of needs because they have not been met. Repression is conforming to the neglect, conforming to the emotional unavailability, conforming to the lack of food in the refrigerator, conforming to the fact that mom had to leave you because mom was sick, or mom had to go to work, right? Repression is a means of control in situations where you don't have control. You did not have control of whether or not you would have a meal. You did not have control over whether or not you had housing. You did not have control over whether mom could be there, dad could be there. Repression. Conforming to the neglect. Ignoring your needs. Resourcefulness is, I may not have what I need, but how can I find value in what I have? What can I use? Okay. Aquarius, the other Saturn ruled sign here. Ooh, this is so good. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Now we know self-determination is radical. Dissociation is what happens when we experience social death. It's when we do not exist in the imagination of others. It's being ignored. It's being disregarded, not looked at, not seen. What do you think they're doing to trans children? Ignoring, shaming, rebuking, refusing to look at, you don't exist. What do you think happens? Come on. What do you think happens, right? Daddy was at work. All the things, right? Self-abandonment is believing that, and it's not on purpose. These coping strategies are not willful. They're like automatic processes. How can you be present to and aware of yourself when no one even will acknowledge that you exist? How can you know you're trans when you don't even have a concept for that? How can you understand your Blackness when you have been in white spaces your whole entire life? Surprise, surprise, surprise. Right? Self-determination. I have a right to see myself through my own eyes, to imagine, to hold an image of myself in my own mind, even when I'm being disregarded. This is so important. Do you understand that whiteness requires you to dissociate? Whiteness is not an identity. It's not a personality. It's not a culture. It is a big fat eraser. What do you think white is? Nothing on the page. It's all been erased. Your names have been erased. Your ancestors came over here and even changed the way they spell their names so that the English folks who were already here would accept them, so their name wouldn't be too different. That's what happened. You stopped cooking the foods that y'all cooked back at home because it was too stinky to the white people who were here. Erase, erase, erase. Dissociation, shrinking, self-abandonment. Who are you when you are not a laborer selling your labor to survive? Who are you when you are not your genitals? Who are you when you are not your skin color? Who are you? Do you have an identity? Let's imagine one. Don't tell me it's too hard. Don't tell me you can't. You're just out of practice of imagining. That's all. That's all. It's really that simple. The reason why you can't even conceive of a self outside of selling your labor is because you don't have practice imagining. The reason you can't conceive of an identity outside of whiteness is because you don't have practice imagining. Okay? We're gonna do it though. We're gonna do it though. Pisces. Now we absolutely know that this is radical. All of my mutable signs, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, your wound is gaslighting. And that simply means that a particular means of discerning the truth has been denied. For Pisces, it's that you cannot take things at face value. You perceive that there is something, some unifying factor that would make everything make sense, but it's being withheld. And it's not always on purpose, right? There are generational lies. It's called capitalism, okay? That the only way for us to survive is for us to sell our labor, okay? Suspicion, right? This is about self-trust, okay? Intuition is radical in a society whose one of their primary religions outside of whiteness and capitalism is scientism. If it cannot be counted and qualified, it doesn't exist. And even if we count it and qualify, we're going to interpret it in a way that preserves the existing status quo. So being able to perceive truth and knowledge, come into awareness of things, even when what they look like, who are you outside of what you look like? What can you intuit? What can you know from the inside? Right? Right? You see? The numbing of Pisces as a water sign is with suspicion. Everybody lying. And what that really is about is that you don't trust yourself to discern who to trust, when to trust, what to trust them for. Right? And suspicion is also like, that look like a duck, but right? Being lied to by omission, we numb with suspicion. Okay? I'm trying to get done with this before 8 o'clock, and then we can spend whatever time answering questions. Let's get to it. Now we're at Sagittarius. This is another mutable sign. So we also have gaslighting. Prejudice means having an existing explanation, belief system, or story to explain everything that you encounter. That's called indoctrination. It's called whiteness. It's called capitalism. It's called patriarchy. You understand? We're all, right? But particularly for Mars in Sagittarius, do you know what I mean by sincerity? Right? Sincerity is the entitlement, meaning I know the limits of my capacity to discern the truth, the limits of my own prejudice, the limits of my own existing story. Now, what is the barrier to sincerity? Zealotry. Exaggeration. Here we go again, right? Understand the ways that this really manifests is really being blind to our own indoctrination, not understanding and recognizing that there are things that we have taken as for granted truth, innate reality, that are actually indoctrination. And we are unwittingly zealots. These things do not exist. They are not real. They are constructed. They are made up. Somebody wrote it, told you. They don't even come from your own lived experience. Right? Sincerity is about trusting your own lived experience as a means to discern truth, rather than the prejudice and indoctrination. It's hard, right? But these are tools. Skepticism is a tool. Self-doubt is a tool, right? Whereas Gemini is compulsively saying, I don't know, because they're constantly being told they don't know. That is a tool for Sagittarius to say, I don't know. Some healthy self-doubt and skepticism, right? Okay. We get into the good stuff now. We're getting to the good stuff now. Let me turn this down before I blind myself. There we go. Okay. Now we know, emotional boundaries for Scorpio. Yes, absolutely. This is radical. And let me be clear. All of these things, these are not big things. You can do this. You can start today. We think of radical as starting some big endeavor. But when we talk about establishing a new status quo, it's actually in your relationships. How, Mars and Scorpio, can you become aware of the ways you've been alienated because you're too different to hide? Ooh, somebody in here, see, you were a stepchild amongst a bunch of stepchildren, and you were alienated because you weren't actually the real child of your step-parent. You didn't even look like them. Too different to hide, shamed, rebuked, abandoned. See, when we talk about the Mars signs, abandonment is when the knife is taken to us. They cut you off. You're too different to hide. You don't look like us. Kalia Maurice, you don't know by now who I am, what I do? Right? Here we go. So when you are alienated because you're abandoned, you're too different to hide, Scorpio, they sever your capacity to be connected, belong, and be in relationship. They take their emotional acceptance of you away. You're not one of us. And so, well, the knife gets taken to you. So now you take the knife to everybody else. Isolation. Right? This is necessary. Understand all these coping strategies are necessary, right? You have to know when it's not safe. And you can get to emotional boundaries in isolation because you can get clear on where they end and you begin, right? Emotional boundaries. I have a right to feel what I feel, when I feel, what I feel. I choose to be affected by my own body. This is hard stuff though. You're welcome, Rebecca. I'll be posting the video to Instagram, Twitter. I'll try to send it out, but there's so many people that signed up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, okay? So isolation is a necessary coping strategy when you've been alienated. It literally means it's not emotionally safe for you. I always say that you need isolation to survive, but you can't stay there long, right? Isolation is not a replacement for emotional boundaries. But this is a tough one, especially right now. Being different, right? And what I mean by being too different to hide is that you cannot conceal away your gayness, your blackness, your queerness, the fact that that's not your real daddy. Those aren't things that you can hide. So it's not a choice, right? But emotional boundaries are you going to be affected by your own body and accept what you feel as a means to self-governance, right? Not numbing, not getting stuck here, abandoning your need for connection, severing yourself from people compulsively. Okay? Can you see the way that these gifts in and of themselves are radical? Can you see that? That this is really not that deep. But because of patriarchy and capitalism, we think that the means to liberation is going to be authoritarian power structures and capitalism. And no, okay, Aries. My favorite Aries story is about Muhammad Ali, who's Cancer rising, I think Sun in Capricorn, bunch of stuff in Capricorn, Mars and Saturn in Aries. He had a lot of this exaggeration, but it wasn't really though, because he was beaten down, right? I'm trying to keep myself from looking blue, but I don't know. I look blue. I don't know why it's not picking up the white. There we go. So, right, that's why I keep holding this up, Kay, because this is white and it like, but when I take it down, it goes back. Anyways, so yes, here we are, Aries. Remember we talk about exaggeration of abilities and influence? This is about control, Aries. This is about control. Remember I talked about invalidation of people not recognizing your limits, right? And for Aries, this is being disowned, meaning a parent or caregiver abdicating themselves of their adult obligation to take care of you, to be responsible for you. Remember that wound is not always on purpose. Most of these wounds is just because you're living in patriarchy, capitalism, and whiteness. Right? Did Eric Garner abandon his child? No, he was killed by whiteness. Right? All my late 80s, early 90s babies who came up during the crack era, those who got caught up in 3 strikes, 94 crime bill, and daddy was gone. Listen, man, these were the conditions, right? So when I talk about disown for Aries, I'm talking about adults in your, where is the real adult? Abdicating themselves of responsibility to take care of you. And so now you don't even really know what a child is supposed to be. You've been left home by yourself since you was 8, taking care of your 3-year-old little sister. How do you internalize that? Remember that the entitlement of fire signs is all about what it is that you're actually capable of and making peace with the reality of your limitations. You had no one to model for you consideration, thoughtfulness, and a sober recognition of the reality of the circumstances because no one considered you, no one was thoughtful about you, and no one considered the reality of your conditions and circumstances. And so now look at you, right? But remember, these coping strategies are useful for us as well. I talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. being Aries rising with Jupiter and Aries on the ascendant, right? Aries is opposite Libra. Libra is the habitual rule follower. Aries is the rule breaker. The rules do not apply to me. Sometimes the rules are unjust. And so even though the law says I cannot ride the front of the bus, I know I can ride the front of the bus. Right? Strength and power, the entitlement of being in right relationship with my abilities, understanding that rules don't define what I'm capable of, they just define the consequences for what I do. This is about how am I navigating this, right? We almost there, y'all. We got 4 left. I've talked a lot about Taurus. Self-approval. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Let me tell you this for my Taurus rising folks, my Taurus Mars folks, my Taurus folks. Just because you've been accepted into the institution, just because you went to the good schools, just because they hired you, even though you don't have much experience, even though they keep sending you opportunities, even though they don't really know you like that. Don't mistake that for who you actually are. You are not the person who went to institutions. You are not the person who makes $100,000 a year. Those are not identities. That is not who you are. You play the role of a laborer who earns $100,000 a year in exchange for selling their labor to a capitalist class. You are a person who privileges from a peering white, and it grants you a ticket into institutions of power. Right? But it comes at a cost. And that cost is docility. What happens when you get inside and you don't want to play the good white person anymore? You don't want to play the good girl anymore. What happens? Docility. Docility is you have the power to stop this right now. You have the power to bring this thing to a grinding halt, laborer. You are not a millionaire in training. Laborer, you sell your labor for money and use that money to buy your house from the people you sold your labor to. Okay? You a sharecropper, but what you cropping is your own labor. Right? We are all guilty of this. Everybody got Taurus somewhere, but this might be easier for folks to see who have Mars and Taurus specifically. Docility is when you conform to who they tell you you are. You conform, conflate your assigned role with who you actually are. You mistake that for your actual identity. And you conform to it, abandoning yourself and being in situations of dependence. Because what happens when you really be yourself? Do you even know who your real self is? Do you know who you are, what you would do, what you would contribute to community if you were not selling your labor? Do you know what you would like, what you would believe, what you would value without whiteness? Do you know approval? I'm talking about self-approval. This is the difference between performing for the false approval. This is not easy stuff when we think big. But if we bring it down to the microcosm of our relationships, what I mean here, and I talked about this in my reading for the new moon on Sunday, what I mean here is when we talk about approval, I'm talking about what happens, mother, when you step outside of that role of mother. Do you feel guilty? Are you ashamed? What happens when you rest person who sells your labor? Do you feel ashamed you're not being a good capitalism laborer? What happens when you have hopes of doing something besides selling your labor to survive? What happens when you imagine a world where your housing is not conditioned upon your selling your labor? Guilt, docility, conforming. This is powerful, radical stuff here. This is powerful, radical stuff here. Do you see? 3 more. 3 more. I knew this was gonna go over. I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying. Let me drink some water. I ain't drink nothing. I ain't put nothing in my belly. Lord help me. Oh yeah. Me and Winter be spotting Taurus like, because here's the thing. Taurus is the sign of passing, right? And Taurus really be like, why don't you just, if you just, then everything would be, not realizing that they're able to conceal away their differences because they pass as cisgender, white, straight, male, whatever it may be. Right? And they're in a prison. Taurus locked up. The consequences for rejecting the value system of whiteness, whoo! Are you kidding me? Come on, let's talk about it. The consequences for rejecting the expectations of maleness and masculinity, they will beat your beep. Don't you dare feel too much. They'll call you gay, knock you up, lock you in your locker. Starts young. Come on. Do you know what I mean by docility? I mean respectability politics, legitimate coping strategy. Do you accept the fact that your identity is not your genitals? Can you wrap your mind around that? That your identity is not the school you went to, it's not the neighborhood you live in, it's not how much you make, not the degree you have. Those are not identities. Let me move on. I'm gonna get ready to fight somebody. I don't know who, maybe it's me. All right, we down to the last 3. Hey, Mars in Libra. Excuse me. Wife is not an identity to all of my new fandangle trying to repackage patriarchy into something. That's not an identity, okay? You're not gonna fulfill your life's dream. I'm sorry, because you're not gonna be able to perform it well enough. Trust me, they're gonna tell you that you're doing it wrong eventually, or you're just gonna die slowly inside and crumble into a pile of self-rejection and self-abandonment, okay? So let's talk about this coercion. Do you know what coercion is? It's punishment. It's manipulating you. If you do this, I'm going to. It's ignoring you. Okay? Legitimate response to coercion is compliance. I don't want to go to jail, okay? Not trying to get locked up. I always say for Mars and Libra, what does it look like I'm doing though? For Taurus and Libra, I talked about it in the new moon reading. It's on YouTube. Strategic concealment. Strategic concealment. Compliance is riding the back of the bus, right? You're following the rule because you don't want the consequences, right? You show up for work because you don't want to be fired, right? You take care of your child because you don't want to be put in prison, even if that shit is killing you. You comply. Compliance, right? What is this? Rejection and coercion are two sides of the same coin. Docility and compliance, two sides of the same coin. You understand what I'm saying? I'm gonna be who you tell me to be, and I'm gonna do what you tell me to do. Right? Okay. Strategic, Libra. It's really about doing what you gonna do without getting caught. Strategizing, navigating this status quo. But it has to come with acceptance, right? This is the imagination, strategizing, strategic concealment. It's really about not giving your hand away. We live in a society that's like, you have to be 100% authentic all the time or you're fake, but don't do anything for other people's validation because that means that you're fake and you're not authentic. It's like, sis, bruh, which one is it? Gender inclusive, which one is it? Right? Virgo, I know y'all been waiting. Meticulousness, my favorite. Y'all not gonna miss nothing and y'all be getting on people's nerves with this. However, right? However, sorry, I had to mute somebody. So, lying by commission is a explicit lie. What do I mean by condescension? You looking at it, for example, this is deep. It is a measurable, quantifiable fact, right? That Black women die during childbirth and pregnancy at rates way higher than any other race. No, they don't. Well, it's because ... and this, and that, but it's not really. Right? Data collection, right? That's a kind of meticulousness. It's a kind of curiosity, a discernment, right? But the black and white is that when you do not allow for nuance, right? This becomes a weapon in the sense that if the numbers don't add up, then it must not be true. But there's a way that meticulousness works in your favor, in the sense of paying close attention to what can be observed, right? How is this radical? Excuse me, how is this radical? Trusting yourself is always radical. It's the resourcefulness. This don't seem right, but we're gonna stick with it. Hold on, let me check my notes here. Give me a second, John. Let me just check my notes. Cause something ain't right. Where's that? Right, how this all wrong? Dang. This is supposed to be, oops. This is supposed, This is, what is going on here? I'm trying to fix this. There we go. This is supposed to be, oops. Pragmatism. And this is supposed to be, I don't know how this been wrong for so long. No, this is supposed to be, yes. Sorry, Virgo, now it's fixed, right? Curiosity is how we inquire about what things might be beyond what they actually look like. Understand that being literal and black and white is a way to protect yourself from being lied to, right? I also want to add that like these mutable Mars are our neurodynamic friends, right? These are our neurodynamic friends because your capacity to discern truth often leaves out other means of knowing. Other means of knowing, right? So Virgo is going to focus on what things look like at the exclusion of other unifying factors that might make it make sense. It was Virgo, 9. It was, not even gonna lie. It was. Maybe I have some subconscious issue with Virgo. I do. It's not even subconscious, but I didn't mean to make it come through. That's because of my chart though. Okay. Let's go on. If you got questions, hold them tight. We at the last one. Come on, scribes. Come on. Knowledgeable Mars in Gemini. Yes. Yes. Now this here though. Come on, Gemini. Come on, Gemini. Because people are always telling you that you're stupid, right? You really don't trust yourself to know. But our Mars and Gemini folks are going to be the ones who trust what they know, even when it contradicts the status quo. Because that's why you're condescended upon. That's why you don't know what you're talking about, allegedly. Is because your curiosity extends beyond your indoctrination. Right? This is radical. You see? Being able to trust the fact that you can learn outside of the validation and legitimization of institutions and doctrines. Come on, y'all. Right? How are you taking what you learn and know inside these institutions to dismantle? Do you see? Do you see what I'm saying? But this gullibility, right? This is believing that you don't know what you're talking about and being suggestible to the input insight of other people to the exclusion of your own capacity to know. Right? But this is how you cope. Literalism for Gemini is, well, they said it, it must be true. This goes hand in hand with Sagittarius, right? This is why curiosity is a gift of both Virgo and Gemini. Let's stop this. I really want to answer questions. Let's, this light is totally washing me out. So we gonna fix it. Down, down, down. Whew, it disappeared. The light disappeared off my forehead. Okay, it's a little darker, we gonna work. Okay. All right. Questions, let's talk about, let's talk. I know lots of people have left, but it's still 180 of y'all still here. So let's talk. I'm willing to be here. I ain't got nothing to do. This is my job. You understand? I might have to give my child some attention soon, but you know, you can come ask for it. All right, Laurel, welcome. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, it's pronounced Laurel.
I'm sorry, Laurel.
That's okay. How would houses play into all of this? If the planets would.
So houses serve a couple of functions. One, my question I always ask regarding a house placement is, where do I have to go to be, do, or have this thing? Right? So when we're talking about the radical gifts of our Mars placement, the topics of that house are going to be where you have to go. It's the venue. It could be a relationship. It could be someplace out in the world, right? Does that make sense? Okay. The other piece of houses too, which is a bit more complicated, is about time. Houses are the time markers. Each house in our birth chart is associated with a specific age, right? You got Mars in the second house. That's from 1 to 2, 13 to 14, 25 to 26, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So these are actual time periods in your life where these experiences are shaping and happening for you, okay?
So, thank you.
You're welcome. And the last piece I'll say about houses too is that, sorry, I didn't mean to click that. The last thing I'll say about houses too is that when we have, for example, at the end of this year, there's going to be crazy new moon in Scorpio, right? Scorpio transits are associated with this fight for bodily autonomy that we're actually having, right? And so when we have planets moving through Scorpio in real time, it's going to awaken your own Mars, and you are going to be confronted with your own conditioning, your reaction to the radical things other people are doing, and the coping strategy that you fall back on when you sense danger. Can you stand in the contradiction in that space between your coping strategy and your gift? Can you stand in that space between hubris and arrogance and dignity and self-respect, Leo? Right? Hi, Doreen.
Hi, thank you. My question is, what if you don't really resonate with Mars in Cancer, like with the addictive coping strategy?
Right. So
and
talk that to, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I resonate more with, I think, the Mars in Gemini than anything. So how do you explain for that difference?
So you can still have Gemini in your chart. You probably do. Let me see. You probably do have Gemini in your chart. I think specifically, let me see. You don't have Gemini. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so let me ask you this question. Sometimes the words that I use don't resonate because of your understanding or association with that word. So what I want to know is, what do you hear and understand when I use the word addiction?
Coping with alcohol or drugs, food. It's nothing that I lean to at all.
Right? So that's one way, and maybe I probably focus on that. But what I mean by addiction, it goes back to numbing. And by numbing, what I mean is seeking to feel one feeling over another, right? Let me see what's going on in your chart. Let me see, since I have it here, because now I'm curious. So you've got a lot going on. You have Moon in Aries, and you have Sun and Saturn in Capricorn, right? So what does that really mean? Especially with the Capricorn, what it means is that Capricorn is about sanity. It's about getting a grip on reality. Capricorn's worst fear is self-delusion. To not have a sober realization and awareness of the reality. It's dangerous, right? It's dangerous for Capricorn to think more of themselves than what they are. It's dangerous for Capricorn to not have a sober grip on reality, right? And so Mars is existing within that ecosystem. Now, sometimes what this means is that you're oscillating between the two. My bigger question for Cancer would be about mom, right? You've got Cancer rising with Moon and Aries in the 10th house, which tells me mom is a looming large figure in your life, women, grandmother, right? And so it could be just thinking about that relationship and what that relationship taught you about how to be in your body or not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I always thought it was my father that was the most powerful person in my relationship, but I have to examine more of my mother. It's a very close friendship that we have, actually. A good bond. A lot of, yeah. So that's interesting.
Right. I think too, like, I hear that a lot. Right. And my goal is to validate your experience and to give you some language to help you articulate, right? And a lot of times it happens this way of like, you know, it could be that your relationship with your mother was what it was because of the influence of your father.
Oh, very much. Very
Right?
much. Yes. Yes.
Right. And so it's these concentric circles of relationships. One of the things I didn't talk about and that I meant to say is that sidereal zodiac signs, their function is to establish a hierarchy of relationship priorities. Right. So in your mind, you got dad looming big out here, and then mom exists inside of that. And then where are you? Where is your body? That makes sense?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm glad that I could help. I hope I helped.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll unmute.
Hey, Esso.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask if you could just go back and expand a little bit on the entitlement of the fire signs and like expanding on how that's a gift.
Very good.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So entitlement is about a right relationship with your impact and influence, neither overestimating, right, or underestimating, or knowing when the right time is to overestimate, right? Ultimately, entitlement is about taking up space. When we talk about fire, what fire actually does is change any and everything that comes into contact with it, even if it's got to be put out in the process. Water comes into contact with fire. Yeah, the water might extinguish the fire, but that water that came into contact with fire is chemically altered. It's not happening, right?
True.
It's not reforming. And so the entitlement of fire is about taking up space. For Aries, it's about literally, I have the power to move this. I have the power to move my body from the back of the bus to the front.
Yeah.
Right? And then with Leo, it's about confronting hubris, which is a false sense of confidence in exchange for authentic confidence that's rooted in who you actually are, not in who you are as being trapped in the gaze of other people.
Oh, okay. And so it's moving from that like arrogance of the like the coping strategy, like also because Sag rising and Mars here, that pretending like I know everything and understand, the arrogance there, to the entitlement of saying this is what I know about, this I don't know about, and have the difference and I understand and I take that with me versus pretending like I can, like with Aries, do all, Sag, know
So with
all, and then Leo.
Sagittarius, it's more about recognizing the limits of your prejudice and indoctrination. Because what zealots do is, zealots have an inflexible belief system that will not change in the face of new evidence.
Oh, right, no matter what.
Sincerity is like, maybe this doesn't apply here. Maybe this doesn't fit into my existing belief system.
Oh.
Maybe my belief system needs to change. Zealotry is inflexibility, right?
Yeah.
Overestimating,
Okay.
like not everything fits into your doctrine. Does that make sense?
Into this. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot more sense. And so the entitlement is just recognizing where you take up space and where you don't.
Right. Recognizing the limits of your own impact and influence, right? That sometimes your belief system doesn't apply, and sometimes your lived experience is in contradiction with your belief system. Insincerity or zealotry is holding on to the belief system when your personal experience does not fit into your indoctrination.
True. Yeah, because zealots don't care. Yeah.
No, they don't.
Oh, okay.
Right. I mean, look out in the world. Look at, that's what we're living in. People really be like, COVID doesn't exist, dying on their deathbed because their belief system will not allow them to change, right? It's zealotry. Sincerity is recognizing, oh, wait, something's happening that doesn't fit along with this story I've been telling myself this whole time, this story about who I am and what I believe, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. That helps so much.
You're welcome. This is why I really wanted to get to the questions, because sometimes people need to ask things in a certain way for me to find the words and answer it in a specific way. So thank you for your question. Samaria.
Hey, my baby just actually woke up, but I'm gonna
I
ask.
was about to ask you. I literally, before you spoke, I was like, where that baby at?
But it's nice to see you again, and as well as everybody else. I just wanted to ask about, because you said that because of, I think Mars is going in Taurus, that everybody with a Taurus Mars is kind of going to be like beat up right now. I was asking about Taurus Saturn and how like Mars will affect Saturn at this moment.
So that's a tough question, because this Mars retrograde in Taurus is happening within a larger context for people with Saturn in Taurus. I know Esso has Saturn in Taurus too. This is your last Saturn square before your Saturn return. So it's really hard for me to isolate this, except to say that your Saturn story, this is a big part of it. And for anything Taurus, this is really about conflating or confusing the roles which you play for your actual identity, right? Or you confusing what you look like to other people for who you actually are. And reckoning with the way that conforming to who you appear to be has offered you some privilege of safety or power that you have to reckon with, right? Specifically, I mean, for everybody, we about to be in a major Scorpio Taurus situation, which is kind of deja vu of what we've been dealing with since spring of 2020. But it's confronting this conforming piece, conforming to our racial designations, conforming to our gender designations, conforming to our class identity, often at the expense of our own well-being. Like, are we literally going to be docile and conform to the abortion ban? Is that what we're going to do? This is not just out there in theory. Like, is this actually what we're going to do? Are we going to conform to the urgency of normal and put ourselves up for slaughter by COVID? Are we going to conform to our role as consumers? Are we going to buy and consume and prioritize that over our own life, body, safety, and well-being? These are not in theory. These are real things we're confronting, right? Are we going to expect people to fulfill their roles as server, laborer, food cooker? Are we going to expect people to hold on to those roles at the expense of their own safety, body, and well-being and our own? Right? When I mean conform, I mean like day to day, real life.
Mm.
Thank
You know,
you,
and
Victor. I see you.
why? So when you say that, because I feel like, especially when we're talking about capitalism and how it affects our daily lives, somehow it still feels like we're kind of distant from. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's called dissociation,
Yeah, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
right?
Like I feel like it's hard to, when I'm thinking about Taurus, especially with it being my Saturn or whatever, it's really hard to like apply that to myself, even though I know, yes, I'm living within this patriarchal society.
But let's pause. Let's pause. Let's make it personal. Let's bring it down. I want, you don't have to answer this now, but I want you to think about who and what is defining what mother is. Your role as mother. Is your role as mother defined by the absence or presence of some other kind of support? Or are you determining what mother is? Do you have the power to do that? Or is mother just all the labor nobody else wants to do? And are you going to accept that as who you are? Or are you going to hold the tension of understanding that you are being coerced into, right, that position?
That makes a lot of sense. Okay,
Right?
I appreciate that.
That's your Saturn story. That's what this is for you. Who gets to tell you what mother is? Are you just gonna stick your tail between your legs? You're gonna do what you have to do, but you can still resist. What's your resistance look like?
Okay.
Did that hit it for you?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, I figured it did. Thank you. Hi, Lev. We can't hear you, Lev. We can't hear you. I'm gonna I was gonna mute you, but I can't. Oh, there you are. I don't know why. Okay, Lev, we can't hear you, so let us know if you figure that out. Kenyana.
Hi,
Oh,
can you
wait,
hear me?
hold on. It's roach time in my house, so they be coming inside. I'm just looking to see where they are. Hold on. Lev wrote something in the comments here. Liberation for me right now looks like developing ritual, finding my boundaries, and healing mother wounds. Can you discuss tools for developing boundaries and daily rituals and healing mother wounds for someone with the third house, Sag, Mars, Moon, Mercury ruled by a Cap? Okay, this is a lot of information, so I don't need all of that. I'll focus. Let me just answer because they put it, I guess they couldn't, couldn't. Uh-oh, who that? Hello? Okay. They couldn't,
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Oh, there they are. Go ahead. Well, I see
My
your
audio
question.
acting up. Sorry, I don't know if that's a lot of information. I'm sorry.
It is. And you know what? I'm used to it. People be like, okay, but my third house square, my second house trine sextile. And I'm like, oh, wait. We can just, let's just go here, right? Tools for developing boundaries and daily rituals. So there's some assumptions in this question. The third house is about your kin. It's about who and what is familiar to you. It's about your siblings, your grandmother, your aunts, your uncles, your relatives. This is a question about belonging. Do you belong? Do you fit in? What is required of you to belong? Sounds like you got to believe what they believe, but also dealing with some real neglect around food and having your material needs met. Right? So what does it mean to belong? That's where your work is, right? Do you have to believe what they tell you to believe? Right? What is the identifying belief of your family unit and system, right? What is the thing? We all belong together because we believe this, right? It may not be religious or spiritual. With Jupiter in the second house, it may have to be around how you spend your money, food, how you get your material needs met. Are you required to share your food and money? Something like that. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that answered your question. The other piece
It did. Thank you.
The other piece led to, with regard to the daily ritual, another piece about the third house is developing spiritual practices that it might be perceived as you being a heretic. So rejecting some religion belief to learn and reclaim your own, whatever that means to you, okay? All right. Thank you for being patient, Kenyana.
Oh, it's no problem. So my question is, well, I have Venus and Mars in the same house and in the same sign. So like, what can that mean about their relationship?
What's the sign?
Gemini.
Gemini. So Venus and Mars in the same sign. I was actually thinking about that while I was in the shower this morning. It can be challenging because there is, and it really depends on whether, can you see which one has the higher degree?
Yes, it's Mars.
What's Mars' degree?
11.
And what's Venus's degree?
2.
Okay. So there are some extenuating circumstances that cannot make this true, but I'm going to assume that because of the degrees, this was a conjunction that happened sometime after your birth, but it was building right around your birthing parent going into labor and birthing you. What house is it in?
The 8th house.
Okay, so 8th house are things that threaten our food source. They are people who have their hands in our pockets or in our refrigerator. It's the ways that we are materially dependent on others. It's having to share or be materially responsible for other people, right? So Mars and Venus in the same sign is not as cute as it seems, because there is a way, this like constant dance of feeling threatened by connection, right? And feeling threatened by autonomy, right? This dance back and forth of connection, autonomy, connection, autonomy. But for you, this has real consequences on your capacity to get your material needs met or other people's dependence on you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? So boundaries are hard because who do you have to tell no? Are you allowed to say no? Boundaries are hard because, especially with Mars in the 8th house, it's kind of like you can't even, like, for someone who has Mars in the 8th house, my advice to them is always like, it's so important for you to realize that autonomy and independence as a capitalist value and definition is never going to happen for you. You're going to share. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
and I'm going to say this, you don't have to answer, but I want to say this for some other people as well, that we assume that everybody's going to have a job and that's going to give them enough money to eat. Can you look around the world and see that that's not true? So it has to be articulated someplace in your chart. Why is it that no matter what I do, I never earn enough money on my own to eat? That I can never make enough money to pay my own rent? This society will say there's something wrong with you. No, there's something wrong with this society that it has that expectation of you. And it's very hard. When I talk about decolonizing our survival instinct, I'm saying that it is not going to happen. It is not possible in this system for everyone to earn enough money to live inside their own little box by themselves. It's not happening. So how can we see the ways that this is articulated in our natal chart to give us permission to accept and imagine, to accept the reality that we live in and to imagine a different way, to take the pressure off of ourselves for not conforming to this messed up nonsense, right? Does that make sense? Y'all can nod, you can give a thumbs up, whatever it may be. I hope that was helpful for you, Kenyana.
It was. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Dayna, right?
Yes, hold tight. Takara is going to be the last person. Don't nobody else raise your hand. Yes, Dayna.
Thank you so much for this evening. My mind is blown. I have a question. So we're going through Mars. We're talking about our Mars placement through our sidereal, through the sidereal chart. And I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around, how do we see our Mars in relation to our sun sign, especially if up until this point, we've always seen ourselves through the tropical zodiac?
Oh, that is such a good question, Nicole. And I'm so glad you asked it, because I'm certain there are other people here or other people who will watch this video that will have the same question. Thank you, Nicole. So this is deep, and I'm gonna try to not take all day answering this, because this is, you done hit the core of my personal soapbox. Patriarchy. Okay. There's a book called Yorugu by Marimba Ani. And in this book, Marimba Ani, she is an archaeologist. Archaeology has never actually been used to unpack the cultural practices of whiteness as a construct that was created, right? What are the practices? What are the values? How do they organize society, right? We call this reality. We call this normal, right? We call this right morally, right? So right that we have to go to other places and tell them that they're wrong and that they need to live this way, right? When in fact, this is just a created system just like anybody else, any other culture, right? That emerges from a specific space in time. And one of the things about tropical astrology, specifically as we encounter it right now, is that it emerges from patriarchy and capitalism. I got a book on my shelf right now that is written, is a translation of a book written by a Christian astrologer who worked for a Muslim caliphate. What was the Muslim caliphate doing? He was trying to expand the Islamic empire. And this Christian astrologer worked for him, casting charts and divining to figure out when the right time it would be to expand to the west or east, north or south. This is the history of tropical astrology. Imperialism. So how we get to tropical astrology at present is by a man named Alan Leo, right? It was a threat to the existing power structure to even say that astrology could predict anything, right? Alan Leo was responsible for the modern horoscope. He literally said, he's the one that did it. He literally said, mail me your birthday and $1 and I'll write a horoscope for you and send it back. That's capitalism, come on now. Prior to that time, actually, common people didn't have access to astrology. Their birth times wasn't recorded. There was no universal time. There was no way that we all kept time. It was like, I'm gonna meet you when the sun is over the square out to the east, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So even our conception of time did not allow for astrology to be practiced that way. So it was a very intentional moment where astrology was conflated with capitalism, and it was focused on the sun sign. Now, if you really want to get deep, if we talk about what the sun actually represents, it's actually very, very, very insidious. The sun represents physical sight, your eyeballs, and it represents your awareness of yourself. It represents kings and authority figures, often the father. You can't tell me it doesn't mean something to have a whole astrological system centered around identifying with that planet. You can't tell me it doesn't mean something when we live in a society where our entire identities are centered around who our father is, where your last name come from, right? So part of this sidereal astrology thing is like understanding that even astrology is colonized. Right? Even astrology is colonized. And so the way I'm gonna wrap this up in a bow, and I hope this makes sense, is that as I was explaining to Doreen, in this system, you are not one thing. This is a direct pushback against patriarchy and capitalism. The binary is that you are this or that. You are gay or straight. You are white or black. You are boy or girl. There is no room for the nuances of all the experiences that have shaped who we are. And so in sidereal astrology, what we're focused on is establishing a hierarchy of relationship priorities. You came from relationship and you're going to die in relationship. You're going to die because of relationship. You're going to die because, right? So this hierarchy of relationship priorities actually allows us to figure out our personal relationship with the planets. Most of us, the sun is not up there. If there was somebody whose chart I saw, Mars and Leo on the midheaven, I don't care what their sun is, Mars is running that person's life. The wound of abandonment, being disowned, right? This is what is at the forefront for this person. So the language of sidereal astrology is really about what happened to you. When did it happen? Who did it? What consequence does that have on who you are? I always say tropical is prescriptive. It's saying you are this. And it offers a prescription of how you're supposed to respond to that. Scorpio, you're going to be reborn. But in sidereal, I'm more concerned with what happened to you? Who did it? When did that happen? What were the conditions that created that? What does that mean about how you relate? What barriers does that put in between you and the things that you desire? So I don't want to offer a prescription of who you should be. I want to offer language to describe and confirm and validate your experience. And that's the end of my soapbox. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome, Nicole. Y'all be getting so excited about this stuff. I can't help myself. Mamie Willis. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello? Oh, I thought I was next.
You here? We can hear you.
Hi. It's funny, I was actually going to ask a question similar, but I had a multifaceted question.
Okay.
And I missed the very, very beginning of this, so forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat yourself, but
okay.
I was just trying to, and just meditating around Mars and like this moment, which seems like a sort of universal moment of like turmoil and deep, intense, uncomfortable transformation. Just thinking about the role of Mars in this, under the lens of decolonizing. What was it?
Decolonizing our survival instincts.
Yes, decolonizing our survival.
Hold on one second. I'm answering questions.
It's literally been 3 hours.
I know. I told people to stop raising their hand.
Mom.
What you need? Oh, y'all, FYI, for those who don't know, I'm in New Orleans, which is literally a city on top of a swamp, and it's roach season. So I'm gonna be right back. and check, because they come in the house from outside and they're about 2.5 inches long. So I got to get my can of Raid and do my bug check so the kid can feel safe. I'm gonna be right back. Hold your questions. Want me to cut your mango? Okay. Okay, I'm back, y'all. Thanks for waiting. No bugs. Hallelujah. All right, Mamie, you were talking about Mars and being in this moment of turmoil, but you didn't quite get the question out. So let's try again.
Yeah, I was just speaking to this moment that feels kind of global, and having missed the first moments of the session today, just like wondering how we can utilize Mars and our placements within Mars in this moment specifically.
Thank you for asking that. I be trying to give so much information that sometimes I miss the point. Blame Jupiter. But whenever we have, let's talk about since 2020. We have had, actually, I like to go back to 2016 because that is often a moment that people can connect to. Spring and summer 2016, right? There was a lot of activity in sidereal Scorpio, which means that whenever there is transiting activity in sidereal Scorpio and Aries, the outcome or what is going to be triggered in your chart is always your natal Mars position, right? So since 2016, and let's specifically talk about 2020 until now, where we've had really significant activity both in sidereal Scorpio and Aries, it's our Mars being triggered over and over and over again. And so when you see the wound and the coping strategy and the gift of your Mars sign, what you're really seeing is, how am I going to cope with this shit? Taurus is going to be docile. Libra's gonna follow the rules. Aries gonna be like, fuck a pandemic, I do what I want. Right? Cardinal signs, Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, Libra, control. Right? And by control, I mean regulation. Is it your routine? Is it your eating habits? Are you withholding food or indulging food? Are you sticking to strict time structures, or do you struggle with time management? Are you trying to control other people, right? Do things need to be a specific way? Do you resent people telling you what to do? Like, what is it? What is the way that you cope with being triggered? And so the language that I offer here is about, okay, like this is what we're dealing with. Like you notice we're in this time of turmoil. And the question is, can we get to the gift? What does it look like to get to the gift in this time? It's kind of like the only way we're going to get out of this is if we get to the gift, because we're not going back. Right? The only way we're going to get to the changes is by getting intimate with the gift in our intimate personal relationships first. Does that make sense? Do you have okay.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Alexis.
Hi. Okay, so I know there's the relationship between, the second house and the 8th house, and I can see that, play out. But I was wondering if there was any relationship between the second house ruler being in the first house and the first house ruler being in the 12th house.
Okay, so too much information. Which one do you want me to answer?
Is there a relationship between my first house and my ruler?
So this is going to talk about your relationship with food, right?
Okay.
What's the planet in question? Is it Mars?
Mercury.
Now this is about Mars. Now why are you asking me that?
Oh, I mean, my Mars is in Virgo.
So I want to stay on topic and not branch out into other areas. So if you have a question about what we've been talking about today,
so it's a two-parter.
Happy to answer that.
It is a two-parter. So as far as Mars in my second house, how do I navigate, that relationship between, my grandmother and me, because, she's the primary source of taking quote unquote food out of my mouth, So how do I, navigate breaking away from that connection?
Are you Aquarius rising?
I'm sorry?
What's your rising?
I'm a Leo.
Oh, Leo rising, not Aquarius. Yeah. Oh, Mars and Virgo, that's what you said.
Yeah.
Second house placements are always really tricky because tropically we want to go to values and what I value. And you know me, Alexis, I like to keep things really simple.
Yeah.
Second house is about food.
Yeah.
What is the source of my food, right? Because all currency is a means to eat, right? At the end of the day, you sell your labor because you have to eat. If you didn't have to eat, you probably wouldn't sell your labor, right? So what is the source of my food? I almost want to think of what feeds me? What's in my refrigerator? What's in my pockets, right? Mars is always going to be talking about disruption and conflict. That's not what you want to see in your second house. You don't want to see disruption and conflict. You want to see a full refrigerator. You want to see relationships that are going to help you get fed. You want to see connections that are supporting your capacity to feed yourself or helping you to meet your material needs, right? And so Mars in the second house is not doing that, right? It's not peace. It's not connection. It's severance, right? So you can talk about, for you, in order to really understand that placement, I would think about what was happening at 13. I would think about what was happening at, how old are you?
I'm 27 this year in August.
So 13, 25, but also 20, right? those ages are all going to be connected with that house. So what was going on with your money, your source of food? How did you eat during those times? What connections can you make between those time periods? I think that's the best help that I can offer you because you know better than me.
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Emmanuel.
Oh my gosh, hi.
Hi.
I really don't even know how to put words to these past few hours. This is incredible. This is actually my introduction to you and all the things that you do and all the things that you've learned and that you've been so gracious to share with us. So thank you for that. My only question actually at the moment, because there's a lot to process.
Yes.
Especially being introduced to this stuff for the first time. When I was registering for the session for the workshop, my email was a character off. So I think that's perhaps why I didn't get any of the stuff that would have prepared me for the session today.
Wait, how did you even get here?
So I got a text and I got,
Oh,
I got the text. So
okay.
I just clicked that link and that's how I got into the Zoom. So I just wanted to see if it would make more sense to like drop my correct email in the chat or like DM you on Instagram so that I don't miss anything else.
You can email me at hello@thepeoplesoracle.com. I'll see it. I check my email. It might take me a while to get back to it, but I do check it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And this is going to be posted on YouTube for everyone or just the people that attended the workshop? Okay, perfect.
It's free. I'm not gonna do that. It's free. Free.
This was so great. It felt, again, this is my introduction, so it felt altogether foreign, but also altogether familiar. And I've heard a lot of myself. The most I know is that I'm a Cancer. So like I heard a lot of myself, but I also saw glimpses of the people that I keep around me, like my chosen family, my friends. So yeah, just thank you. Thank you so much for doing this and committing to this work. And I'm glad to see you eating as well.
Yeah, I had meant to bring a snack over here, like at least some nuts, but I did eat before I sat down, so I wasn't starving myself. But thank you.
Okay.
I really appreciate that. I just be getting so excited. Like you see my kid, it's been 3 hours. I know, but I can't stop myself.
Thank you again.
Thank you. It's totally been my pleasure. I hope I'm doing on June 11th, Basics for Beginners. So if you want to, it's $12.
Yes.
Check it out.
I would love that. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, I said that Takara Renee was the last person. I'm sorry, Ashley and Aaliyah. I got to go. So we're going to do this again. It's okay. We're going to have another one. Don't worry. Hi, Squid.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm like trying to comprehend this as well. You kind of went into actually my question. Someone else asked the question. I have my Venus and Mars in Gemini, but I guess I would like to expand. Like it's in my 7th house alongside my South Node. So I guess I'm wondering if that's relevant in like decolonizing like my survival instincts or if that informs it in a different way.
I mean, your whole chart, let's be clear, it's really your whole chart, but I wanted to focus on Mars because this is the planet that is like a tripwire in terms of what is our personal capacity for the radical, right? And radical just literally means not conforming to the status quo, daring to be different, right? Daring to escape our conditioning, right? So you're Sagittarius rising. Your 7th house is the context for who you are. Gemini is curious. They ask questions. They're knowledge seeking, right? Sagittarius already knows because they have an existing belief system, right? And everything they encounter, they're going to fit into the container of their belief system. But Gemini is curious. They don't necessarily dig deep. They're acquirers and disseminators of information, whereas Sagittarius imposes belief, right? One of, I didn't get to this in the talk here, but for mutable signs, which you have a whole lot of in your chart, this is the question: how do I know what I know? Whose judgment do I trust? This is the question of mutable signs, right? So this is the fundamental question for you in terms of your whole chart, really. I mean, that's a lot in mutable signs. And what this really means is that I have a blog post, a couple of them, but I have a blog post talking about discernment. And it's talking about knowing who to trust. And not only that, but knowing which one of your own faculties you should trust at any given time to tell you the truth about what you're witnessing and experiencing. Sagittarius is going to default to their existing belief system, where Gemini is going to assume that they don't know and ask questions, right? Neither one of them is better than the other, right? They're not. Sometimes it's like, chill on the asking questions. What do you believe? What do you perceive? What are you witnessing with your own eyes and experiences? And sometimes for Sagittarius, it's like, yo, I'm Sag rising, and I get sick of myself. Like, I be tired of talking about whiteness, patriarchy, and capitalism, but I can't unsee it. It's everywhere, right? So this is about knowledge. This is about truth, and this is about discernment. Which one of your faculties do you trust? Which one do you not trust? Do you know when to switch it up? Do you know when to hold them and fold them? Do you veer towards another one? Do you distrust other people? Do you only trust what you can see? Do you get where I'm going with this, Squid?
Yes, yes, yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you.
You're very, very, very welcome. Who we got up next here? Athena. Athena?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
How do you say your name?
Athena.
Oh, okay, good.
It's just the Greek god, but it's spelled a little different.
Gotcha.
So this is my first time sitting down with my chart and trying to understand it. And I have Libra Mars, and I also have Libra in quite a few other places in my chart. And I definitely related to a lot of what was said, not so much the rule breaking or the rule following part, but definitely it just seems like there's kind of this consistent pattern where I try to go forward in my life, but then I end up going 2 steps backwards. And I was just kind of wondering if you could clarify about what you meant on like how you're supposed to advance, especially when I've been making compromises over and over again. And when the thing holding you back, it's kind of hard to hide from people.
Can you say that last part again?
Like you mentioned, like keeping your cards close.
Oh, like being strategic.
Yeah, but generally the thing that I feel like has impacted things a lot, it's extremely difficult to hide from people because it just affects my day-to-day life so much.
So can I ask you a question? Because I never assume that the way someone is using words is what I understand or what they mean. So what do you mean when you say hiding?
Sorry, I'm just trying to think of what I mean.
No, it's okay. I mean, answering this question might actually bring you a little bit more clarity. And maybe it might illuminate that maybe I didn't use the best words or we misunderstood each other. So that's why I'm asking.
Okay, well, I guess to be frank, it's because I have a chronic illness. And so as soon as someone hears that, they assume I can't do something. or when I
Your
try to
chronic
make a
illness
move, then it
visible?
gets worse.
Is your chronic illness visible to other people without you having to tell them?
It is now. It didn't used to be. Currently I'm using mobility aids and I've been waiting for surgery to hopefully not use them. And so then even after, I'll still have the scars and I still have the general symptoms. So it's kind of hard to explain to people like why I'm so tired all the time and things like that without directly telling them.
That's it. Remember what I said? I said so much, and so you might have missed it, but I said about Mars and Libra, well, what does it look like I'm capable of? What does it look like I'm doing? Right? If you had Scorpio more prominent, or even Aries, you would not be able to hide it. Right? Meaning that whether or not you wanted other people to know, they would know because it would be obvious to them. Right?
Okay.
And so one of the things that I want to make clear is that it's not something that we're doing all the time. It's not conscious or intentional. You're not intentionally concealing your disability from people. It's just the fact that people actually can't see what you're capable of because you, quote, look normal, right? And so it works both ways in that Venus placements, whether we're talking about Taurus or Libra, conceals the truth of what something is. Sometimes it works in our favor, sometimes it works to our detriment, right? Does that make sense?
I think so.
And when I talk about being a rule follower, what I mean is Libra as a cardinal sign harnesses a sense of power and control over their life by learning how to navigate by following rules. Do I mean that they do what they're told all the time? No. The habitual rule following of Libra looks like, just tell me what I have to do to get my disability benefits and I'll do it. Right? Realizing in the process that those rules are not even real because you followed the rules. You did what was expected of you. And you complied. You filled out the paperwork. And now what? Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Ariel or Ariel. I really hate to
Hi, Dayna. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna bring up Taurus again. I'm sorry.
It's all right. We gotta live with it. It's here. It's happening.
Yeah. So I have Mars and Taurus in the ninth, and I'm also in an Aries perfection.
Ooh, don't be giving me too much information. What's your question?
Yeah, because I'm stopping right there. So my question is, so for someone with like that Mars and Taurus placement, would it be correct to say that like, I guess like our resistance might take on a more passive form?
That's such a good question. Taurus is not passive. Taurus is seductive. Seduction is not passive by any means. Taurus's goal, Taurus's function is the fact that what it looks like is not what it is. And because of that, it gains control over other people's inner emotional experience. Here's a great question. Here's a great example. Will Smith, Taurus rising. He'll tell you that he became the funny kid to stop his dad from beating everybody. What really was motivating that was fear of harm. But he did not show the fear, he showed funny. And he was able to disarm his abuser by performing funniness. Now that's an intentional way to see it, right? But other ways that manifest is the way that we may consciously conceal the ways that we do not conform to the dominant culture, or ways that we just happen to be privileged to conform to the dominant culture. The gift of Taurus is self-approval. And it's really simple. Who you've had to perform as or appear to be to survive, don't mistake that for your actual identity. Because when the power structure changes and that is no longer a form of privilege, you're going to be caught up fighting to preserve the status quo because you don't know who you are. So
Yeah,
who are you?
I think that's what I'm learning now this year.
Yep. You said Mars and Taurus in the 8th house?
In the 9th.
Oh, in the 9th house. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm in Aries perfection year right now.
Right. So that's all about the privilege of being able to have your ambitions validated by institutions. Right. So it could be getting a degree, working in government, working in academia, working in a museum or some other institution, right? Conforming your ambitions to those that will be legitimized by institutions, even if that's not even what you're trying to do. Why is he screaming? He must be playing a game. Hold on 1 second. Let me just check and make sure my child isn't in danger. Give me a second. Hold on, I'll be right back.
So I know we're all waiting for Dayna to come back, but if you guys like cats, I did want to bring your attention to this one.
Oh, I love cats.
Okay, I'm back. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, actually, that
Thank
makes
you.
a lot of sense about having to like perform a particular role and things like that. That definitely makes a lot of sense.
Right. Taurus is almost like losing sense of who you really are because of the power and privilege that who you look like you are gives you, right? It's getting lost in the sauce of your class privilege, lost in the sauce of the power that whiteness confers to you, lost in the sauce of the power that maleness confers, right? It's like, just because you looking like this gives you power, that's not necessarily a statement of what you're capable of or who you are. And so you'll get caught up preserving that power structure at the expense of your actual self.
That's funny. That's really funny that you brought that part up too, because of my Leo stellium.
Whew. You got a lot going on. I hope you go into Winter's Leo support group, because
I may or may not have a conflict, but I really hope to make it.
I hope you make it too. Leo, Winter's going to break it down. Okay, let me get through these last 3 people. Thank you, Ariel.
Okay, thank you, Dayna.
Hi, Aloe. Long time no speak.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and just like facilitating. I appreciate it. I really had a question like about leaning into my body and like Cancer, when like my material reality just like contends with that on like just the basis of, you know, participating in capitalism and having to, you know, reckon with the fact that I can't take a break, but like it feels like that privilege is reserved for other people.
Yep.
When I got a lot of Earth, and then like I got Cancer Mars, but and it's just like a whole Cancer stellium, but it's in the 7th house, so kind of that's it feels like it's not for me, you know?
No, that's real. And that's why I said sometimes it's really not safe to be in our bodies. And that's why we cope by numbing. But I think the starting place for that is the awareness and recognition of the conflict, right? Because if everybody who has Mars in Cancer just becomes aware of the conflict, that alone changes reality. Do you see it happening in real time? Do you see it happening in real time, people becoming aware of these various contradictions? What do you think this thing of everybody having ADHD means, right? Does it mean that everybody's sick? No. It means that everyone in real time is becoming aware of the contradictions of having to live in these systems. And there together, we are having a collective awakening to the fact that neurotypicality is a social construct that we're all realizing we have less and less tolerance for conforming to because we've had a lockdown that gave us the freedom and space to not mask. And now to go back to that,
it feels like once the veil has been pulled back, like there's no way.
Exactly. Right? Look at the labor movement. Everybody at once is realizing I have a right to determine for myself the terms under which I am going to exchange my labor for currency. One person do it, shh, don't say that. Enough people imagine that things can be different than reality, bam. It's not even like, that. It's not far-fetched, even though it feels personally very hard. But that's because you're not supposed to do it alone. And that's why we're here together.
I feel like I see it happening, like just like within my industry, just like collectively people take like what I do, I like have clients and like we're independent contractors. So like the labor movement's going on, a lot of people are just like not even able to show up to work because of the fact that there's no COVID restrictions in place, since it's like a strip club. But like it feels like on the one hand, there's so many people who can indulge in like their bodies in a harmful way, kind of like in an indulgent way that's counterintuitive to the preservation of their livelihood. Like I see that happening, and I'm like, I want to be able to preserve like my body, but like finding those people who are capable of like listening to their bodies, but in a way that, you know, doesn't kill them. Feels
right.
Like,
I mean, and this is the point of this. That's why I say imagine us free, because the primary barrier as I see it is lack of imagination. I write about this all the time, that the primary evidence that your survival instinct, your nervous system has been colonized is that you cannot imagine. There is guilt and shame and instant rebuttals associated with even imagining that your conditions are different than reality, right? And so what I'm offering as a practice is to hold the contradiction. And as Capricorn rising, that is very hard for you because you're sober, you see things as they are, but we need that. We need somebody to be sober. This for you too, Doreen, all at Capricorn. We need some people to be so fearful of delusion that they refuse to lie to themselves about the reality of our conditions. But you have to be able to do that and also understand that that same coping strategy turns into a gift when you realize that you can repurpose what is to be something else. Right? So holding that space between repression and resourcefulness between trying to escape the reality of your suffering by numbing it with something else, holding that space with that and attunement. You can do both and. You can be absolutely, completely aware of the fact that you are about to numb out. And that in and of itself is powerful. It's not even about not numbing. It's about recognizing the fact that you're doing it and why. And coming into other people who are willing to ask the question, into community. That's where we are. Does that make sense?
Yes, that last bit, like just the awareness, like of knowing that you're doing it and knowing why, like I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Yes, I know you're ready to get it done. Listen, one thing about Mars and Cancer, y'all, red lights don't know y'all. Like the idea that you should stop and not, right? Like it's very much identify. Well, I'm speaking of Mars rising, and I'm thinking of somebody specifically who has that in the first house. It's opposite for you.
It's conjunct my lot of fortune though, Mars.
It's what?
Conjunct my lot of fortune. So
Oh yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's this sense of identifying with what you're doing and not having this separation of consciousness between doing, right? There's no, unless you have Libra or Gemini, maybe, there's not really any consideration, right? It's just the impulse to do what your body says do. Now, it's going to bring up contradictions when you have those oppositions, right? But those are special too, because that's being very aware of the contradiction in a way that someone else might not be aware of it. And that's a burden, it sounds like, for you, that you want to resolve the conflict of that.
It feels like it's a legacy burden too.
Okay.
Like generationally, you know, even my mom, like I feel like has to hold those two things, like Capricorn moon too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like seeing how she's been able to witness people indulge themselves and then having to know what her form of like, not necessarily dissociation, but like how she finds peace with it and is able to move on. Like I guess for her, it's like prayer.
Okay, Aloe, I don't want to cut you off, but it's 9:38. Let me get to these last people. Thank you. Excellent question.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hi, Temperance.
Hi, Dayna. Thank you so much for this live.
Of course.
I wanted to ask if you could talk more about Virgo Mars and sort of just describe again how Virgo Mars can decolonize and be more radical through meticulousness.
Yes. So let's talk about, as you were asking that question, what I heard was, what is Mars protecting themselves from? Mars in Virgo is protecting themselves from being lied to, right? And sometimes Virgo's going to interpret someone not being literal as being lied to.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like when people aren't being straightforward with me, like I immediately assume, okay, so what are you hiding? Like, what are you like, or what are you hiding? Or like, why didn't you say what you meant the first time?
Exactly, right? Mars and Virgo is constantly beefing over being understood, misunderstood, understanding someone else, right? And the Black and white approach to discerning meaning is what they use to protect themselves from other people's lack of precision with language, right? This is why I say the mutable Mars really be digging into neurodynamic territory, right? Because it's really just things getting lost in translation, right? But sometimes it's intentional. And Virgo is is not really concerned with intention. To be concerned with intention is Jupiter, is Pisces, right?
Right.
So meticulousness is about paying close attention to what things are. I think one of the most amazing ways that I can see Mars and Virgo out in the wild is questioning cultural norms. Why are you asking me how I'm doing if you don't want to know?
Right,
Why, right? Why are you saying that you're okay when you're not? This is
Right.
curiosity. And it's noticing a discrepancy, which some people feel that as a threat, right? And then go ahead.
I say that a lot where like I ask whenever I am like showing curiosity, which is pretty rare, I guess. Because like sometimes when sometimes I would assume that like maybe that's just like my Sagittarius Sun and Mercury were like assuming stuff and the whole Jupiter thing, but like and like my Virgo Mars clashes with that square, right? A lot of the time. So like I don't know, sometimes I'm like assuming I guess if it's like a case scenario where like I'm assuming the worst, but then my Virgo Mars just wants to know, okay, but like or like get to the nitty gritty of like, what did you mean by that? What did you mean by what you said? Or why did you do that? And stuff like that. But like,
yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, that Mars square your sun is why you're so smart.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm serious. That particular square, and when I say smart, what I mean is you have an insatiable compulsion to validate your perceptions, meaning that you're going to use your meticulousness to challenge your own perceptions. And it's a catch-22 because you're going to believe your own eyes or not. And then when it comes to other people interjecting in that, that's where the doubt comes because now you really don't know. But the working out of that square is, do I trust what I'm seeing out of my own eyes? Can I discern when my prejudice is preventing me from seeing things as they are? That is literally Mars and Virgo square sun in Sagittarius. And understand that the impact that has on your relationships, because people don't ask themselves that. They literally can't tell the difference between their indoctrination and their actual lived experience. That's why we're in this. That's why we got to tease it out. Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense. And like, I guess I see that like as time is ticking and like it's getting really late, but like, I just wanted to like, that just reminded me of like an example of like just yesterday, my grandmother is very anti-abortion because like she's very much so like, oh, you're killing babies, yada yada. But it's like it's I tried my best to like try to like challenge her perspective of like, okay, like, so what are you actually against? Are you against the clinic, the presence of the clinic being there? Or are you against this sort of black and white thinking of, well, there's good people that deserve to have an abortion, but then there's bad people that should never get an abortion because why did they get pregnant to begin with? Yada yada yada. But it's like, who cares? Who's checking for that? Who's checking for whether or not someone actually did get harmed, did get like sexually harassed, or etc. Sorry, trigger word. Like actually end up in that situation where they end up pregnant, or who like why is it important whether or not they actually
don't even believe when people say that they've been assaulted, and so like what's even the point, right?
Exactly. It's like but as well, even if someone did, like it's nobody's business. Why would it be set in place for someone to check, like, did you actually?
Right, but what you just uncovered is nuance, right? Which is not a part of prejudice.
Right.
Right. Let me get to Takara. Okay. I'm getting tired. So I want to just answer this last person's questions. I see you, Ande, but I just can't. I can't. Send it to me on Twitter. And if you have a question, and I'll answer it on the timeline when I'm not ready to go to bed. Okay. Hi, Takara.
Hello. I'm still kind of new to this, and I emailed you my birth chart just in case because I don't quite understand everything. But I have Mars in my first house with my rising and my Saturn, and they're all in Virgo. And I was wondering, like, with my rising and my Saturn also being all in the same house, how is that gonna affect my Mars? Like the work that I need to do with my Mars.
Let me see here. So, because I'm looking at your chart, I can be a little bit more specific, but, and Ande, I'm gonna try to answer some of your question in here. We would call this a conjunction, not quite a stellium, but it's a, well, no, we can call it a stellium because there's 3 bodies here, right? Or 3 placements, the ascendant Mars and Saturn. And it's really tricky because there's a lot of factors to take into consideration. In your particular chart, I can see that Mars, which is the faster moving body, is approaching Saturn. And so all that means is time-wise, this is something about the conditions that were materializing during your gestation that manifested in a specific event when you were born, right? So Mars and Saturn in the first house, you know, can be talking about actual issues with your body. It could be something about the method or way that you were born. It can talk about chronic illness or other issues that you actually have with your physical body. When we're talking about the first house, this is actually you. It's things that happen to you, things that you do, things that are happening to your body, right? So this building conjunction is speaking of something that is materializing at some point. Let me see here. Yeah, and see, I can't tell here. I would have to actually look. I can't tell here if Saturn was going to go over into Libra before Mars got there. So answering questions about multiple planets in a sign are really complex because there's a lot of factors into consideration. I can see that Mars is lower in degree, but it might be that Mars retrograded and never caught up with Saturn. It could be that Saturn moved into the second house, and so the conjunction actually happened in the second house. And then my question is going to be about, you know, were you at some point separated from your mother because she had to work or some other issues that were going on with her? I don't know. It's just that I need a little bit more information that I can't get from just looking at this static chart. But what I will say to you is for everybody who has Mars in the first house, planets in the first house are things that you come to identify with because other people perceive them about you. It may not actually be who you are. It's like somebody constantly pointing out how you're different, right?
Yeah.
How you don't look like other people. And they may not explicitly say it. It's just in the way they treat you and interact with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the expectations that people project onto me, I've come to identify with that.
I wouldn't say expectations. I would say it's almost like, let's say Mars is a red dot on your forehead, right? You don't know that red dot is there, but everybody is treating you as if something is on your forehead. And after a while, you start to conflate the way with people are treating you because of that thing that's on your forehead with who you actually are. It starts to become a part of your identity rather than understanding that people are projecting not expectations, but like an actual identity. I have issues with that word expectations because I don't really know what you mean by it, but let's just go with that. I hope that made sense.
Okay. I mean, it kind of does, yeah. Being well, I guess being female bodied and automatically being projected onto that I'm supposed to be a caregiver and take care of my younger siblings, and then when I go against that, I'm looked at as if I've lost my mind because I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the challenge with Mars is that in the first house specifically, is that people can perceive you as a threat, even when you're not doing something threatening.
I've dealt with that my whole life, like especially with other female body beings. Like I'm trying to make friends, and it's always been hard because it's always automatically I'm seeing as some kind of competition or threat, and I'm just trying to be friends.
Right. And this is in contrast to someone who has Mars in the first or Venus in the first house, where their approach or how they would come off is concealing their differences in order to make themselves appear more like other people, like magnifying commonalities. And because you don't default to that, people think that you're like mean, right? When it's really just like, let me just be myself. Like, why is me being myself perceived as a threat to you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I've been called mean so many times just by being in a room. I haven't said anything to anyone. I haven't did anything, and they automatically just perceive me as mean.
Right. And that's totally because if you are in a female body, they expect you to, hi, oh my God, what's up? And that's probably not how you function. You have the same rising sign, Mars and Saturn, as my child. And like, from the moment that he could make eye contact with other people, he just was not going to say hi to you or engage in any kind of like perfunctory social rituals just because that's what you're supposed to do. Like, it makes him uncomfortable. And people would get mad because they're like, oh, hi. He would be like screaming in people's faces at 8 because it's like, I don't know you. Why are you so close to my face?
Yes. Oh my God. Like so many people have been like, you're too quiet, because I don't automatically go into rooms and start talking. Like I observe, and it makes them uncomfortable, and they want me to talk to make them comfortable. And it's like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that.
Yep. And that's it, right? Mars is the opposite of conforming, right? It's the opposite of, Mars is like magnify differences. And I'm going to wrap this up in a nice little bow. Thank you for that question, Takara. I hope it answered. But that's what this is about. This is about the ways that surviving these systems demands that we hide the truth of who we are. That we do not do what we feel compelled to do, because what are the consequences, right? We've been on here for almost 4 hours. I'm gonna